What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Yes, that was me taking a quick second to go like that and make sure that I had actually turned on the microphone. If you've been here before, you know I sometimes can start a show with no microphone on, so I wanted to make sure we weren't doing that on a big Tuesday 11 gamer. Could have gotten away with that yesterday on that little weird 3 gamer that we had with the early show and everything. Hopefully some people out there did well, felt like we were all over that one. Had a very good lineup myself early on that kind of died on the vine later on. I was actually a little bit surprised at where it fell to. It was really rolling early. Just missed just slightly on some of those combos. I think the oddball, if you happen to roll with that Jadiel Rodriguez play that we talked about, but I wasn't enthusiastic about. We were talking about it and probably saying 4 innings or so. Ended up going 6 and change, I think. Had a great start. Very low owned on FanDuel. I'm sure the same was true on DraftKings. I know Mamba had a little bit of a success. Not a monster ticket, of course, but some positive finishes across the 3 lineups that he had in. He shared the screenshot with us. Brought back like $100, $80 or something against whatever he entered. Not bad. So congrats to Mamba, who's in the chat right now. Good to see you, buddy. Andy Melman's here. Kenneth Woodhouse is here. Stephen B. and Cujo are here. Hope you're doing well too, Cujo. Hope everybody out there is doing well. Some crazy times out there. Hopefully your individual lives are all going well and you're not panicked by the state of the world. Let's talk baseball. That's what makes it fun. We can all get together and just talk about this, right? Whatever else is going on out there, at least for now, they're still playing baseball. So we've got that to fall back on. Dynasty League draft is going hot and heavy. I'm probably going to have to pause in a few minutes to get a pick in, but I don't seem to be getting their emails, which is weird all of a sudden. I made my first pick just a few minutes ago in the 5th round. And that's a weird text. My first pick came in the 5th round, so as I told you guys, I kind of made a bunch of trades, traded away all my previous prospects. Taking a shot at making a run this year. I was coming off of a couple titles, transitioning probably toward a rebuild, but there's just enough of a window that I figured I could probably pull off at least, like I was saying yesterday, a 2nd or a 3rd, given how the standings look. So I'm leaning a little bit more toward like guys who might be able to help me right now that I could just call up if I need them rather than have to, hope that I get them on waivers. So I'm looking in that direction with these picks. So I took Ben Rice, the kid who's filling in at first base right now for the Yanks. Really like how the bat looks, which we've talked about a few times. Is also in this first game hitting 6th. I think he's got a really interesting looking bat. Low strikeout, drawing a bunch of walks. Seemed to have a little bit of pop in the bat as well. Lefty. What I love that I thought was the reason to take him where he's going to have a little bit of value, at least for now, is his catcher eligibility. Move around the lineup a little bit. Gives me a little bit of insurance for like a Sal Perez injury. You grab Rice and stick him back there at least for the next few weeks. He's platooning a little bit. When they face lefties, you're going to see a little bit of J.D. Davis. But he hasn't been bad in his minor league career against lefties. The only player I had that was like prospect type that I was considering, and I almost did it, was Jason Churio. Jackson Churio's younger brother. He's in the Indians. The Indians. Whew, where'd that come from? He's in the Guardian system. Cleveland. But he's a few years out. And I knew my buddy Lou was going to take him at the start of the next round, which he did if I let him slip. And I had like 5-6 picks in between. But I let him go. I figured, again, take the guy who might be able to help me now. And I'm going to probably lean that way with my next few picks. But you might get to see one of them made live. Maybe not. Depends on how quickly Emac gets his pick in and a couple others. But let's talk DFS Slate. It's a really interesting board. 11 games to work with after that tiny 3-gamer yesterday. Oops, that's not where I wanted to go. Just realized I got to sort the pitching board. Deep pitching slate. A lot of interesting options. You can see how there's some good pitchers mixed in down this way in fair matchups at very good prices. I think there's a lot to work with on this slate. Ooh, why did he not... I didn't realize I had Mercado. Mercado's projection is messed up there. Hold on 1 second. Let me... Bear with me, guys. Let me fix that real quick. Why did that not catch? Oh, fuck. He's at the top of the thing, and I missed that he was... he's one of those ones where I got to fix the back end just real quick to fix that DK projection, but glad we caught that. Mercado. Oh, there are way too many Mercados. Can't do it that way. What is it, Michael? Sorry about that, guys. Real brief delay here while I get that fixed, but it's too important for the projections, obviously. He's going to be like half that. The FanDuel projection is correct. The 18 for FanDuel shows he should come in around like 9, 10 on DraftKings. Michael Mercado. All right. There he is. Okay. And we fixed that. Just give him a few starts. That's just because he's in the back-end projections without a starter qualification. So there we go. His correct projection is 10.06 on DK. And I killed the screen share. Sorry about that. Let me put that back up on the board there. So that's been corrected. And away we go. Let me just update it real quick up on the website. Won't take but a minute. 10.06. Okay. That. And we just got to upload this and add a note. How you guys doing out there? What's going on? You can take a look at the pitching board here while we wait while I'm uploading this. Just take a second. But it's as I was touching on, it's a really deep looking slate. We've got some top end aces. We've got some good pitchers in pretty good matchups at very, very fair prices for talent levels. So I think it's a deep slate for SP2s on DraftKings. I think it's a really interesting FanDuel board where you can, if you're building a bunch of lineups, you probably want to be mixing and matching your way through. A lot to work with on this slate. Let me just add a quick note here. .25 update. Glad we caught that early so that it doesn't confuse people out there. If it did confuse you early on, apologies for that. I've got a little thing in there that triggers when gives me a reading if that DraftKings projection is off. It's over here, but he's see when it's broken, this guy turns red. But it was right up against that red, and I didn't realize it. That's why that was screwy, and I didn't catch it. So let's look at the Vegas board real quick. Deep slate, Coors Field game, obviously drawing the big total at 11.5 runs, but we've got a couple games at 9.5, a game at 9, a couple games at 8.5 with believable upside for offense. Seems like a pretty decent spot for bets, in addition to having a lot of pitching to work with, because we've got a few teams in the high 4s, a few teams over 5. Obviously, again, the Coors Field game. Some very obvious squads up near the top of the board. The Yanks drawing a 5.09 implied total against the Reds. That seems like a pretty decent spot. It's Graham Ashcraft going for the Reds in Yankee Stadium. Luis Gil going for the Yankees. Gil could certainly get beat by this Reds team and give up a decent amount of power. You can see where he's got him checked down to on the Vegas board. But as we've talked about before, a lot of what he's done has been getting lucky throughout the first half of the season. He's had 2 clunkers in a row now, 7 earned runs, 2 starts ago to the Orioles, and then 5 earned runs the last time out at the Mets. So maybe getting exposed a little bit. That Reds team's got enough upside, enough talent, good ballpark, nice warm night here in the New York area. So I could see Cincinnati at least getting to better than that total. I don't want to load the Yanks up too much, but like if we were there, 3.73, even that feels kind of low. So the Reds one, it's just one of those spots where, on talent, on situation, matchup, ballpark, and all of that, feels low. Feels like Luis Gil might be getting a little bit too much credit. Big line in between those two teams, so the Yanks are drawing that heavy total on their side, but that side is definitely more believable against Ashcraft. The Astros and the Blue Jays squaring off again at pretty solid mid-level totals. It's Jose Barrios against Spencer Arrighetti. 2 solidly middle-of-the-road average-type pitchers. Arrighetti showing some upside. Barrios comes and goes as being a mid-level, slightly above average pitcher to spiking some upside games. He hit a pretty decent upside game against the Yanks the last time out. Struck out 8, gave up 2 earned runs, but went 7. Got the win, booked the quality start. That kind of a day is on the board against a good Houston lineup. Same thing the other way. Arrighetti just facing that low strikeout Blue Jays team. Both the offenses in this one are low strikeout. Feel like it's going to be a four corners game by the time we get to it. The Giants at the Braves. Hayden Birdsong. Going for the Giants. He debuted the other day in that matchup of the dueling Haydens against Hayden Wisniewski, who's also on this slate. Went 4 2/3, struck out 5, but gave up 3 earned runs, gave up a homer on 6 hits. But a very high-end kid with a lot of strikeout potential. Just walks too many, and that's true through the minors, but at every level of the minor leagues, he was 30+% strikeouts. He's one of their top prospects. He's been aggressively accelerated to the show just because that rotation has been devastated out in San Francisco. But I think he's got some interesting potential against the Braves lineup that does have some strikeouts in it. They're pulling a 4.73 implied total against, of course, and there's tons of power in that lineup, so we're going to look at their bats. But Birdsong could be on that list of sneaky cheap SP2s. Going for the Braves is Ronaldo Lopez, who's been pitching by and large pretty well, has a very good matchup, 3.37 implied total on the Giants side of the board. Ronaldo, definitely a good pitching option today. We'll look at how he compares price-wise. Tigers at the Twins, pretty low totals for both of these teams. One of the best pitchers in fantasy with Tariq Skubal going for the Tigers. That explains the Twins being at just a 3.93 implied total. Twins offense has been really good, so checking them down below 4 means, Skubal's looking pretty good here. He had a good start the last time out, had 2 bumpy ones in a row where he gave up 4 earned runs apiece to the Astros and to the Braves on the road, then came back home start against Philly, went 7 innings, 3 hits, no runs, 7 strikeouts. So I think he hit just a little bit of a mid-June bump there, but by and large, he's been absolutely fantastic. So I have no issues throwing Skubal against the Twins. He projects out near the top of the board. Going back the other way, it's Simeon Woods Richardson, who is definitely capable of snapping off a good start against this Tigers team. We just saw, who was it the other day that we used that crushed this Tigers team? That Angels pitcher, right? So Woods Richardson has more upside than that. I think he's demonstrated it. Earned run high of 5 for the season. He gave up 5 back in the beginning of May or early mid-May. And then give up 4 to Oakland on the 14th of June. Outside of those 2 starts, he's been 3 earned runs or fewer, and he's only given up 3 twice. So he's been pretty effective with some good strikeout totals. Handful of strikeouts in a lot of these games. So he's not off the board against a really low-end Tigers team that's at a 3.65 implied total. Another matchup of 2 decent pitchers. Dylan Cease going for the Padres. And Nathan Eovaldi going for the Rangers. 3.81 implied total for the Pods. 3.78 on the other side for the Rangers. 2 middle-of-the-road type offenses that are probably better than their performance has been, especially when San Diego's at full strength, which they're not currently. On the Rangers side, it's more about just, kind of disappointing performances from some of these guys. But I do think either one of these teams at low ownership against those pitchers, we've all seen Eovaldi get nailed from time to time. He's given up 5 earned runs twice this season. He had a 4 earned run game in just 3 innings against Seattle, of all teams, a few starts back. Gave up 5 over 7 to Milwaukee in the last start, struck out just 4. And Dylan Cease can do the same thing. So as good as both of these guys are, and I do think they're both on the pitching board, we're probably going to talk about this one as maybe being a sneaky, little bit low on both sides. Like, I could see both teams realistically being right about 4 in this one. 2 very good strikeout pitchers overall, but 2 guys that are a little bit gettable. So you got to get the right day, obviously. Probably favor the Rangers lineup just on healthiness, talent, and all of that. But it's an interesting spot in that one. Close game in Vegas. Just a 7.5 run total overall, though. But like, if we give that another half run, they're right where I think they should be. 4.06, 4.03. All right, so that's one of those spots where I think there's believable upside to that level, but that wouldn't make these teams crazy targets. It's just there's a little bit of believable offensive upside as a low-owned angle kind of a play. Phillies at the Cubs, 5.01 implied total on the Phillies side. On the Cubs coming back the other way, 4.59 implied total. Excuse me, I got that backward. Cubbies 5.01, Phillies 4.59. Believable offensive upside in both of those. It's that Michael Mercado guy going for Philly, making his second outing. He threw an inning in relief the other day on the 24th. So he's on full rest. He was making full starts in the minor leagues. So presumably we're getting at least a few innings out of him, and then it's Hayden Wisniewski going for the Cubs. So believable upside on both sides for bats in that one. A light breeze blowing out to left field, I believe, in that one. Cody Clemens is the home run pick of the day in that one from the Phillies lineup because I wanted to get a little wacky with it, and everybody else on the home run board. The home run board today is so straightforward. Surprising. Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Marcelo Ozuna, Juan Soto, Jordan Alvarez, Gunnar Henderson, Brent Rooker, Matt Olson, Shea Langoliers, Teoscar Hernandez, Will Smith, Royce Lewis. And then one of these things is not like the others. There's Cody Clemens right there. So I went with him, just slightly below the magic number. So I think this game's going to be interesting for bats on both sides. Probably not going to look at pitching in that one. Probably not all that excited about pitching in the next one either. Zach Littell going against Brady Singer. Either one of those pitchers is capable enough of beating either one of these teams. That said, it's most definitely Singer that I would prefer against that Rays lineup if I'm looking that way. There's a lot of weather in the area in this one. Both teams are drawing kind of high totals. I know that the Rays are getting talked up. I think it was Cubs fan mentioned it in the Discord that the Rays are getting pretty highly ranked among a lot of the websites out there. They're in the middle of the board for us. They were ranked, I think, 9th on both sites in terms of general offensive upside, but they're very cheap, so they've got a killer value ranking. So if you combine those two factors, I do think it's an interesting stacking spot. But we've all seen Brady Singer succeed against better teams than this, and they have not been overly good this year, top to bottom. I mean, they've had their spots. It's just a lot of rain. The weather report there, storms hanging around all night, again, per Mr. Roth over at RG. And his Twitter reporting. So he's saying there's going to be rain and storms around the area all night. They might late start, and then that would be trouble because it would involve more storms coming in. That's if a lot of rain moves in before first pitch. And then he says if they start on time, there's going to be enough rain moving in that there's no promise that they finish. So you do have some weather concerns there. It's one to keep an eye on. I think both bats are believable, and then it's probably just Singer on the board as like a dart throw in a spot where he'll probably be very low owned. And again, not my favorite pitcher to do that with, but he's coming off back-to-back starts, allowing just one earned run. One against Texas at Texas. He went 5, gave up just 1 earned, struck out 4. And then in the last game, struck out 5, walked 1, gave up 1 earned run on 5 hits over 7 1/3 against Miami. No reason to think that he couldn't do that against this Rays squad. So, maybe a little believable. The Brewers and the Rockies are playing at Coors Field. It's just offense in this one. 6.04 implied total on the Brewers side. They look tremendous. And then on the other side, 5.58 for the Rockies are also looking really, really good. The second highest run total on the board. They ranked out well as a stack. Rocks are going against the reanimated corpse of Dallas Keuchel, and on the other side, it's Ryan Feltner going for the Rockies against the Brewers, so we're really just looking bats in that one. Orioles and the Mariners, really interesting one. George Kirby against Grayson Rodriguez. Fantastic pitching matchup. 7-run total for the game, the lowest on the board, 3.59 implied total for the Orioles, 3.48 implied total for the Mariners. Probably a spot we're almost exclusively considering the arms. Most specifically Grayson Rodriguez going against that inept Mariners lineup with all those strikeouts. But George Kirby's no slouch. I mean, he is a tremendous option. It's just you got to keep a very good Orioles lineup in check. But the ballpark helps out in Seattle, so a lot of upside for the pitching there. We'll explore the options on offense. They're probably going to be pretty low owned given those totals and how I'm sure they're ranked out across the industry. So maybe you can get a sneaky angle in there. We do like to pick off good teams when we do that, and the Orioles would certainly qualify for that. But definitely a limited-looking spot. Last 2 games, low-end series, the Angels against the Athletics. Both of those teams under 4 runs as well. It's Mitch Spence, it's Jose Soriano. Both those guys are going to be on the board given the matchups that they're in. The low 3.85 implied total on the Angel side and 3.73 implied runs for the Athletics. A's were showing a little bit of power. You had both Langoliers and Brent Rooker on the board above the magic number, but those guys are generally in that kind of a territory against your average pitcher. Whoops. So I think both spots believably playable on the mound, but we'll probably consider some bats at cheap pricing as just a value kind of contrarian angle in that, again, probably going to be at low ownership because I think people will go to those guys as value pitchers, SP2s. Last game, the Diamondbacks against the Dodgers. Dodgers drawing one of the highest totals on the board, facing Ryan Nelson. 9-run total for the game, 5.26 implied total on the Dodgers side. And then it's Bobby Miller, tremendous talent. He was short, just 2 innings in his most recent start. It was his second start back from the IL. Did they get rain in that game? I forget what happened there. He gave up 3 earned runs, struck out 1, walked 3, gave up a homer and 4 hits, only faced 12 hitters, 2 innings. I don't know if that game got wet. 6 1/3, though, at Colorado, the start before that, his first start back. So, I mean, the fact that he went 6 1/3 in that Colorado start is encouraging. Is there, Diamondbacks, 2 innings giving up 3 runs last Tuesday. Yeah, I guess it wasn't rain. I guess he just came out after the bumpy 2 innings. It was an inefficient 2 innings for sure. It's 12 hitters. But that's a little bit, I guess, discouraging. But again, the fact that he went to 6 1/3 in that first outing gives me some hope that, against a pretty good Diamondbacks lineup, maybe we get 5 innings, something around there. And then Nelson is just not on the board. The Dodgers are on the board big time. Maybe the Diamondbacks get a little bit playable there, though. Looking at that again, this is why I think Jose Soriano is definitely going to be a little bit popular. 8,200 on FanDuel, 7,500 on the DraftKings slate, facing that limited A's lineup. And he is definitely good enough to find some success, some DFS success there. He's given up a handful of runs, four runs exactly, 4 times this season. Everything else, one time he gave up 3 earned runs. Every other start is 2 or fewer, and he only gave up 2 once. So he's been alternately average to good. It really doesn't have a bad. I guess 4 earned runs in an inning and 2/3 all the way back at the end of April against the Twins was a bad one. Struck out 1, walked 3, gave up 4 runs on 3 hits, faced 12 hitters, came out after an inning and 2/3. Since that start, he had a 4 2/3 where he gave up 4 runs. The other 2 4-run starts, he went 6 in both of them. Both came at the end of May, one against Cleveland, one against Seattle. Struck out 8 Guardians and 3 Mariners. That's upside down. Didn't get you quality starts in those ones, but was effective enough that it's not a total meltdown. Last time out, went 8 innings against a pretty okay Diamondbacks lineup. Struck out 5, walked 2, gave up a home run, 2 earned on 5 hits, went 8 innings, got the win, got the quality start. Facing lower-end competition today at a very, very good price. It's going to be hard to beat Jose Soriano off the board outside of, I'm sure, drawing some popularity as the value pitcher du jour on FanDuel at 82. 75 makes the most sense to me as an SP2 target. But again, going to get popular. So it maybe puts some of those A's bats on the board a little bit. Cubs fans here. Lone Wolf is here. What's going on, guys? Lee Price. So many good bats to pay for. I think I like Simeon Woods Richardson plus Soriano. There you go. Looks like a pretty decent combo. Woods Richardson further down the board, but that spectacular matchup. Who are you concerned about pitch count wise there? Pitch count concern not on my radar for either of those two guys. Woods Richardson last time out 5 1/3. Start before that 6 innings. 4 innings, but gave up 4 runs and struck out 4, walked 4 in that one. 6 1/3 the start before that. He can give you shorter outings, but it's typically come with some runs and some inefficiency rather than just like he doesn't throw all that many pitches. I don't have the exact pitch counts that he threw in those games. Apologies for that, but I think we're fine, especially at price, for just typical expectations of around this median with upside into the 30s on FanDuel and into the high teens on DraftKings. Certainly downside, the Tigers do have a couple frisky bats in that, and he's no ace, but he's been good enough to trust in that spot, especially if you're going like cheap. I think that makes sense. Starting at the top of the board, though, Tariq Skubal, 11,000, 10.5 on DraftKings. Top projected pitcher on the DK slate by a point and change. On FanDuel, it's actually looks like Rodriguez edges him out just slightly against Seattle there for 800 less. Both those pitchers I think are going to be pretty popular. No reason to believe that Skubal can't succeed against that Twins team. With as good as they've been for run scoring, he is just tremendous, and he's beaten good teams all along. He's been the best pitcher in fantasy baseball for the last year, solid, like going back to the middle of last season. So not a bad option off the top, but Rodriguez has a spectacular matchup against Seattle. Definitely a more easier opponent than Skubal's got to face, and he's cheaper on both sides. The fact that you get Rodriguez for only 94 compared to Skubal for 10.5 in a worse matchup, Cease for 10.3 in probably a worse matchup, Luis Gil against Cincinnati in Yankee Stadium for 98, 400 more than Grayson Rodriguez in Seattle against Seattle. Give me Grayson Rodriguez every time compared to Luis Gil there. Give me him more often than not, probably, compared to Cease. And then Skubal is just you can decide that on ownership. You can decide that on what you need to do with your money. But love the option for Rodriguez at a lower price than those guys. He's also cheaper than Ronaldo a few spots down. I'm not sure where they got to that one. So that's a compelling option. Ronaldo, definitely playable against San Francisco. It's a low-end lineup and plenty of strikeout upside for him. 9,600 on DraftKings is more playable than 10.4 on FanDuel relative to where everybody else falls. With that price difference, I probably would grab some Luis Gil at 95 over Ronaldo at 10.4 on the FanDuel slate. It's a lot closer on DK. You get Ronaldo for 200 less than Gil over there. So I think I prefer Ronaldo slightly on DraftKings, Gil slightly on FanDuel, just given the price difference. Evaldi absolutely could succeed against San Diego. Decent strikeout upside, 9,000, 8,900. Fairly priced in the mid-range. Probably won't be like crazy popular. Definitely a playable part on this slate. George Kirby against Baltimore. Same thing. Super high-end pitcher. Projects out a little bit lower, partly on opponent, partly on just what he does on the mound. But any given slate has plenty of upside. He's got that Baltimore team, that very good run-creating team, below 4 runs today. So it shows how good he is. You can see Singer sitting right there in the middle of the board again. Against that Tampa Bay team, I really don't see any reason that Brady Singer can't succeed here. I also totally get why the Rays are pulling a heavy total and why they have upside today. And again, they rank out middle of the board for and one of the top value scores, the way we do value. So I like the spot on both sides. I think it's totally playable. 91 is a bit of a tax on FanDuel, considering I can have, Soriano in a much better matchup, Luis Gil for 95, the rest of these guys, Evaldi for a little bit less if I want to take on San Diego without Fernando Tatis. So I don't love the fit on FanDuel at 91. 8,200 is highly, highly playable on DraftKings. And if the Rays are pulling as much hype as they are around the industry, then I could see him being under-owned for that price. Jose Barrios, I just don't like the matchup against Houston. It's going to be the same going the other way for Spencer Arrighetti against Toronto. Both those teams good enough in terms of having star-laden lineups. By the way, Vladdy Guerrero, apparently a lot of discussions going on with, of all teams, the Pittsburgh Pirates are apparently trying to acquire Vladdy Guerrero, play out his last 2 years while they've got Albrights on him, and then take their chances. But I thought that was really interesting. I saw that pop up. I'd love to see the Pirates make a move like that. That would be so much fun. Hopefully that happens, or he just stays in Toronto. I like him. I like when the Blue Jays are good. Like with the Rays, the AL East and the American League in general is a lot more interesting when the Blue Jays are good. When the Rays are good, when there's a little bit of competition in there and it's not just like Yankees, Red Sox all the time. I know we've got the Orioles in that mix now too, but that's going to probably just be like Yankees, Red Sox, Orioles, those 3 teams. So get it. Keep the Blue Jays alive. But anyway, both Arrighetti and Barrios do have upside. They do have the strikeout potential to succeed against those stingy teams. It's just a lot of why would you in that from the middle of the board. If you're doing it, I think probably Arrighetti against the Blue Jays lineup, 8,000, 7,600, lower priced on both sites than Jose Barrios on the other side. Probably the way I would lean. I would just take the price discount there. But you could play it the other way, and I'm not sure which one would be more popular. Mitch Spence, middle of the board, the other side of that Oakland-LA game, makes a ton of sense to me. He's been successful enough in spots. That team is low-end enough that he's facing. There's plenty of strikeout targets in that lineup for him. He's a middle-of-the-road kind of a strikeout pitcher around the average. 7,100, very, very cheap on FanDuel. 6,600, excellent value dart on DraftKings at SP2. We're gonna look at Mitch Spence. We're gonna give him a hard look in a minute. Miller, again, just facing a pretty competitive low strikeout Diamondbacks team, but 7,500 on FanDuel, 8,000 on DraftKings. expectations of, some upside as long as he gets like 5 and change innings in a full start here, which again, maybe a little bit in question, depends on the efficiency. I definitely think there's upside given his strikeout talent and given his ability. It's just another spot that's like, all right, with a little bit of a question mark, given that short outing the last time, and a lot of good options above. How many times do we really dip down to Bobby Miller against the Diamondbacks? Littell against Kansas City has had a few successful starts, but Casey's pretty good. I don't love throwing him in that spot, especially with them drawing one of the more appealing totals on the board and a lot of weather in the area again. Woods Richardson, we touched on, very fair price for an effective enough pitcher against that very limited targetable Detroit lineup. Wisniewski is kind of a no against Philadelphia in Wrigley Field. I don't like that spot all that much, even at very low prices. I don't think there's tons of upside there, especially when you've got Birdsong against the Braves in that next spot for $6,000 on both sites. I think that makes him really compelling on FanDuel if you want to go like super, super cheap at pitcher. He does have strikeout talent, and there are enough strikeouts in that opposing Braves lineup. I prefer probably in a vacuum the Braves bats to Hayden Birdsong. I don't know why I keep calling him Spencer. Maybe he should be named Spencer Birdsong. Sounds like Hayden Birdsong, Spencer Birdsong. Yeah, I think Spencer sounds like a more realistic name. Realistic is a weird word to use there, but you know what I mean. I think he's a dart throw on the DraftKings slate at $6,000. Same reasoning. You've got more options probably to work with. You might not need to dip down to $6,000 on DK for him. You probably get away with just playing in the middle there. But I do think he's interesting, given that 30+% strikeout rate through every level of the minors and fairly highly regarded kid. Still no picks. Ashcraft against the Yanks, pretty much a no. Feltner at Coors and Dallas Keuchel at Coors are big-time no's, as is Ryan Nelson against the Dodgers at the bottom. So there's a pretty clear cut line where, I think he's playable. He's somebody you can just, pluck out of the bargain bin from the bottom of the bargain bin. And then there's a clear Simeon Wood Richardson. Everybody above is kind of on the board. Everybody other than Birdsong below is pretty much off the board. So it gets very clear in terms of that. But there's a very nice mid-range through here. It's probably that group of pitchers that ranks out as your fair middle. There's a lot of, that's the group where there's a lot of same through there. I like some spots better than others. Littell doesn't necessarily belong in that list at all, but he's playable-ish. Miller, it just depends on the innings, but that's a lot of same there. And then you've got a really nice list of either very strong values like Jose Soriano, who's got a little bit of talent, overperforming guys in not the greatest spots like Luis Hill, or just proven aces or B plus type pitchers in a mix of spots up here. So it's a really interesting board, but there's a clear top tier from George Kirby up, next tier down through from Singer through Simeon Woods Richardson, and then just Birdsong hanging out on his own down here. Yeah, Mama, we're just on the pitching breakdown. We'll make okay time. Let me see. We've got both of these lineups. Fortunately, let's see what else dropped. Oh, Emac's pick is in. Emac takes Mr. Tibbs, James Tibbs from FSU. I don't know. I assume that's a good pick. Emac is very, very good at this. I don't know much about Mr. Tibbs. Anyway, the Reds, capable enough offense. They're going up against Luis Hill, 98, 95. Hill's got a 28% strikeout rate. That was above 30 a couple of weeks ago. He's still got a 12.7% walk rate. You can see some of what I'm talking about with, he's gotten a little bit lucky to have a 3.15 ERA, a 4.13 xFIP is a little bit revealing about where he probably should be. That ERA's gone up a little bit over his last two starts. The stuff plus mark, a 111, still very good, effective stuff. Believable strikeout upside, 11.7% swinging strikes. He's facing a team with a 24.7% strikeout rate. So it could be a good get-right spot for Hill. But again, last time out against the Mets, 4 1/3, gave up 5 earned on 4 hits, a home run, 2 strikeouts, and 4 walks. Start before that against the Orioles, he only lasted an inning and a third in that one. He got tattooed by the O's. That was a home start. Same kind of a day could happen against the Reds here. Inning and a third, gave up 7 earned on 8 hits, struck out 1, walked 2, gave up a home run. Ouch. Start before that, I tell you what, it was kind of deceptively okay in that he went 5 at Fenway, struck out 6, but he walked 4 in that one. There's some inefficiency popping up there. He does have a high walk rate overall, but that was a spike after a run of 6 games where he walked 3 once and no more than 2 in the others 5. So that was a twist going, kind of reverting back to the high walk form. Didn't burn him too badly in that one, but that was a little bit of a start of the downturn, maybe even 3 starts back. Against the Dodgers, he was pretty good. Struck out 5, walked just 1, gave up a homer, 3 earned runs on 5 hits, went 5 2/3. Would have liked the quality start there, obviously, for fantasy. Had a very good run before that start of quality starts. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in a row. Strikeout high of 14 over that stretch against the White Sox. That was a hell of a game. But again, probably more limited than what he seemed like he is over the course of time. A very good 1.98% home run rate so far this year on very limited hard hits, but a lot of exit velo. 89.4 miles an hour. That's a fairly aggressive exit velo number, and it's on a very extreme fly ball trajectory at 17.9 degree average launch and 7.8% barrels. There's enough believable power upside against, despite the fact that he hasn't results-wise given up home runs. There's reason to believe that there's more home runs coming here too. So that also factors in, just kind of piles on top. The Reds on the other side aren't showing like a ton of power in the home run model just because of how his results versus the underlying stuff just kind of balances it. But there's believable power upside for Ellie, Jamer Candelario, Tyler Stevenson, Spencer Steer even. So a little bit of concern about Luis Gil. Wouldn't be my favorite pick from the top of the board, but I think his projection, his place on the board is not incorrect. And he could absolutely spike one of those upside days, have a big strikeout day, and run off with the slate. So you definitely want him if you're building a bunch of lineups. Wouldn't be my top priority guy in 1, but if I'm building, say, 5, he's probably one of the 5 pitchers I would use. On DK, he would absolutely be one of the 10 pitchers I would use across 5 lineups. I'd probably have him twice. On the Cincinnati side, I see no reason in the world to play Graham Ashcraft against the Yankees, even if you're just looking for a low-owned angle, a low-cost angle. There's a lot of better spots on the board. 5.45 ERA, a 4.40 xFIP is admittedly better. 17% strikeouts, but 7.2% walks. You typically don't want to grab a guy giving up 8.4% barrels, a 3.59% home run rate, despite a decent launch angle, tons and tons of hard hits. Again, typically when these are combined with a low launch, we don't care as much. But for one, in Yankee Stadium against guys who most definitely know how to elevate the ball for a home run trajectory, and a guy who's given up a fair amount of barrels and a fair amount of home runs already, I can see the downside. It's certainly seen by the home run model, at least for Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, 2 players up near the top of the board. That said, Ashcraft does have a respectable 13 points above average rating for Stuff Plus. It just never materializes in terms of his results. 149 whip despite just 7.2% walks. A lot of contact and just a lot of hits against. A lot of guys on base. 9.9% swinging isn't particularly bad, but it's not particularly good. 23.3% CSW is very bad. So just a gettable pitcher. Again, no reason to go to him. A lot of justification for taking some Yankees bats. From the top of the Reds lineup, if you're looking in that direction, Jonathan India holding down that leadoff spot now. 381 on base. It's gotten him up to a 124 WRC+. Had a rough start to the season and has kind of pulled things together. Still not a great fantasy option outside of correlated scoring, but he's giving you a lot of correlated scoring right now. So don't dislike the fairly priced second baseman, 4,000, 3,000 across sites, and does have a little bit of counting stat upside, 5 homers, 8 steals. Ellie's got 14 homers and 40 stolen bases already. Does he have upside to like an 80 stolen base kind of a season? If he gets aggressive about it in the second half, he certainly does. 30-80. Pushing that Acuna type season already from a guy that people are still kind of waffling on as far as like whether they like him or not, which is weird given the ridiculous superstar caliber talent. 12.7% barrels and 45.4% hard hits this year is excellent. He's cut strikeouts. He's taken almost 4 points or 3 points off of his strikeout rate while pushing walks up a little bit this year. 217 ISO. His creator runs 24% better than average. He's getting on at a 342 clip. The guy with that elite kind of speed, a 342 on base percentage is fantastic. That's perfect. I mean, we'd like higher, obviously, but that's really, really good with that mix of skills. So Ellie's a superstar, 62-44. If you're going to the Reds, you're absolutely playing Ellie here. Jimmer Candelario, 4,200, 3,200, third base and first base on both sides, 14 home runs, going to be hitting from the left side to start out against Luis Gil, targeting that short porch and right, again, against a pitcher who's given up a lot of fly balls. Jimmer Candelario's got a shot to just hit the ball in the air and get it out of the park here. Like that option, 232 ISO, 110 WRC+. Spencer Steer for 48.34 is cheap, still has his second base eligibility on FanDuel. First and outfield only on DraftKings. It's a talented player, good for counting stats. 10 home runs, 13 steals this year, a 108 WRC+. He's probably not as good as he got out of the gate this year, and then he hit a big dip. So now we're probably slash line about where he's going to hold up. Just depends on what the counting stats look like the rest of the way. But a fair right-handed talent for not a high price. Not a low price either. But it's right in the middle of the board. I think he's highly, highly playable. Great spot in the lineup if you're going to this team. Tyler Stevenson should absolutely be on your board if you're taking Reds bats on DraftKings. 3,600 is very cheap for a catcher over there. He's got 6 home runs. He's got believable power potential, 9.7% barrels, 46.1% hard hits. Only striking out 17.8% of the time so far this year, over 230 plate appearances. That's a monster improvement. So pretty good catcher bat right now with, again, Yankee Stadium power upside. Lazy fly ball the other way out of the righty. Gets out of the ballpark. If you're pulling the ball in Yankee Stadium, if you pull extreme pull, you're all right. If you hit it to that big part of the park, you could lose some home runs in there. But I definitely would include Stevenson in stacks if I'm building on DK. And he's on the board on FanDuel for just 27 as like a differentiator piece from the obvious guys in red stacks. I don't dislike the option on FanDuel. Nick Martini, 34-24 is at least just very cheap. Hasn't really done much. He's 34% below average for run creation, just 4 home runs and 149 opportunities. Noelvi Marte, 3,800, 2,600, underpriced for the talent level, or at least, what we think the talent level is. Got busted for PEDs, so we don't exactly know how good he is versus how much he was benefiting, but he's very cheap to find out. So far, over 17 plate appearances, hasn't been very good. Has stolen 2 bases at least. 95% worse than average creating runs in that tiny, tiny sample. Stuart Fairchild is a mix and match piece late in the lineup. He does have 11 steals, but only a 306 on base, 84 WRC plus, doesn't really hit for power. The interesting one down there to me is Will Benson. Big time lefty power bat in Yankee Stadium against a pitcher who's given up a lot of premium contact. That's compelling. Or I should recalibrate that statement. Luis Gil's given up a fair to average barrel rate, a lot of launch angle, but has managed hard hits, has managed the exit velo is a little bit high, but he hasn't given up a lot of premium contact, but it is there. So Benson, a 12.3% barrel rate and 42.3% hard hits in 265 plate appearances. The average on base have completely cratered this season. He's below average for run creation. 177 ISO. If he had more success here, that would have certainly been higher. So he's lost some doubles and everything in there from as good as he was last year, but still pretty decent counting stats, over 265, 8 home runs, 11 steals. That adds up to like a 20-20-ish kind of a season. For 3,300, 2,500, just to take three pokes, maybe 4 at those right field seats, I kind of like Will Benson as a sneaky option if you're going to the Reds. Again, the Reds are, that total feels low. If Heel is truly not as good as he seemed over the first 13, 14 starts, which I do think is the case, that total's low. On the Yankees side, it's the pretty much current version of this team's lineup. Volpe, Soto, Judge intact at the top. Verdugo back in the cleanup spot. Glaber in the 5 spot. Everybody there is stackable. Everybody there is playable. Glaber's kind of underperformed the season, but he had 3 2-hit games in a row after he was benched for 2 days coming back. So maybe, the trigger finally was pulled and he's going to click back into form this season. But 226, 300, 352 so far, 11% worse than average for runs. 8 home runs, 4 steals is okay, but the power's really been out for Glaber. It's been a problematic year. Strikeouts are still up like 10 points over last year. Really got to get his act together, but he's cheap at second base. He helps cheapen the rest of this Yankee stack. And honestly, outside of Soto and Judge, who are appropriately very high priced, everybody in this lineup now is cheap. Volpe's kind of cratered over the last 200 and change plate appearances. Really hasn't been good. He's down to a 315 on base. Hasn't hit a home run since like late May. So it's been a little bit rough for Volpe up top, down to just a 102 WRC plus. That should definitely be higher when your only focus needs to be getting on base ahead of the two fantastic hitters behind you. But might be time to start considering somebody else up in that leadoff spot. Right now he's there, though, 45, 3,000, a worthy investment at shortstop, capable of providing some counting stats, and again, just one of the best lineup spots in baseball. Soto's got 20 home runs from the left side at 265 ISO, 185 WRC plus, 12.79 hitting lefty in Yankee Stadium is ideal against Graham Ashcraft. Judgy, 14.90 in the home run model. He's got a 31 home runs on the season so far. 316, 436, 708 slug, 392 ISO, 114% better than average for run creation. And remember, that comes with a terrible April. He was really weak for Aaron Judge in April. It's insane the season he's had since the start of May. Verdugo's cheap, 37.28. He's also come down a lot in quality recently. It's been a bad 150-ish plate appearances for him. 244, 301, 393. Still an excellent spot in that lineup for run creation. Just put the ball in play with those guys getting on base at ridiculous 43% of the time ahead of them, 44% apiece. So Verdugo's just got a lot of opportunity. Whether he does anything with it or not, that's why they play the game, but he's a low strikeout contact hitter, puts the ball in play a fair amount of the time. So we've just seen a little bit of a stretch of, misfortune in a lot of ways for Verdugo. Still very playable at cheap prices. Glaber, I talked about very cheap at second base. And then we get into some interesting bats down lineup. Ben Rice, top of the board for me in terms of interesting bats late in the lineup. 2,500 at first base on DraftKings, 2,400 at first base on FanDuel. Unfortunately, no catcher eligibility. Hopefully they get him in there at catcher one of these games so he picks it up on one of these sites, or specifically on DraftKings. Just a really interesting hitter. Over 40 plate appearances, 273, 375, 333, striking out 12.5, walking 15%, 10.3% barrels. A lot of good contact. Lost a few, would have a couple home runs by now if he hadn't lost a few just slightly late swings, foul balls. But a really interesting bat to target that short porch and right. 6.51 in the home run model reflects the quality. Third highest home run mark on the Yankees tonight. DJ at 3,400. 188, 286, 212. Not at all good. A .024 ISO over 99 plate appearances. Not at all good. 41.4% hard hits. Low strikeout, high walk. Keeps him at least somewhat interesting for those kind of prices. It's just, do you really want DJ LeMahieu at one of the corners in your lineup? That's the question mark. But he's got a great opportunity against a pitcher who's given up plenty of contact for him. So he's a contact guy. Can drive the ball from time to time, as reflected by that hard hit rate. Not an uninteresting bat late in the lineup. Trent Grisham has 5 home runs in 94 plate appearances, a 205 ISO. But otherwise, really not all that good. 12.2% barrels, 40.8% hard hits. What you get is a lefty bat for very, very cheap in the outfield at Yankee Stadium. So I do think Grisham's on the board, especially if you're stacking Yankees. He's no priority, but he could be one of the keys in terms of being a very cheap, very low-owned home run upside. And then Jose Trevino at the bottom of the lineup. I'm kind of surprised it's not Wells against a weak righty. But Trevino's playable. 37.7% hard hits, 8 home runs on the season, a 161 ISO, 102 WRC plus. He's a mix and match quality catcher, but he's playable. Yankees bats. I guess I got to go Luis Gil, given how he's projected. So Yankees bats, Luis Gil, Reds bats, and I'm more enthusiastic than Vegas about the Reds bats. If I'm building one lineup, they're not my team, but I do think they're going to be an interesting angle today. I could see them putting up some runs here. Astros, Blue Jays. We probably got these lineups by now. Maybe not. We do have the Astros. Let me see if there's anything weird in it. You know what? Let me just grab it here. Easier. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe. Check out our pals over at acemine.io. For all your sim and optimization needs. Guys got some killer pricing over there as compared to the rest of the industry. Products for all the major sports. I'm sure they're working on a bunch more. Promo code rotoscouts all in caps gets you 20% off the first month too. Pretty solid deal there. Jake Myers, John Singleton, Jeremy Pena, Joey Loperfido in the lineup. And who the hell is oh, that's right. The guy who the guy who leads to the cheesy jokes. All right, so the Astros lineup is in. As discussed, both these pitchers do have a little bit of upside. You see a 25.3% strikeout rate for Mr. Arrighetti over 65 innings, 14 starts. He's got an aggressively high walk rate at 11.8%. Doesn't help him with anything. 5.68 ERA is not good, but a 4.25 xFIP is at least respectable. Little bit bumpy, but not awful. 1.60 WHIP is very high. A lot of hits in there mixed in with the walks. 11.6% swinging strike rate with a 29.1% CSW is really appealing, though. 6.6% barrels is good. 13.9 degree average launch is fine. 2.69% home run rate. All this stuff adds up right here. This is not great. Below average rating by a pretty significant margin by Stuff Plus. But he's not been terrible. It's just low strikeout opponent, 20.3% strikeout rate for this projected version of the Blue Jays lineup. We've looked at them a lot this year. They're just underperforming in a lot of ways, but there still are dangerous hitters like Vladdy Guerrero in there, George Springer, Dalton Varsho to some degree in terms of the power. There's Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette, even with the underperformance, I do still consider a dangerous hitter who could just flip the switch any given time and really needs to sometime soon. But it's not a safe matchup for Arrighetti. I just think he's probably going to go under owned 76, 8,000. He's a fair option from that pool of guys that are, kind of same through here. From Singer through Woods Richardson. And Barrios is on that list as well. He's down at just 18.3% strikeouts this year, but he's got a 3.38 ERA. By comparison, ERA-wise, that's much better. But xFIP-wise, these guys are, again, really similar. The strikeout rates are very different. The walk rates are very different. The whips are obviously very different. Barrios gives up fewer opportunities, keeps guys off base. He's given up more hard hits. He's given up more exit velo, slightly higher launch angle with a matching barrel rate. It's resulted in more home runs allowed for Barrios. 104 innings, 17 starts, so he's given you more depth on average. He's given you a few more starts, so maybe that would balance out a little bit more if we had those additional starts out of Arrighetti. This is a four-corner spot, though, because they're both low strikeout opportunities given the opponents, matching low 20 strikeout rates for these lineups. I just slightly probably prefer Arrighetti at a little bit lower of a price against a probably lower-end Blue Jays lineup, maybe slightly lower end. Jordan Vladdy, kind of a wash. Altuve Bregman versus Bo Bichette, Spencer Horwitz. It's really, really close. These two teams are super similar. Barrios last time out, 8 strikeouts, 3 walks, gave up a homer, but just 2 earned runs on 2 hits over 7. Very good start there. That was against the Yanks. 2 mediocre starts against Cleveland, back-to-back. 5 earned runs and 4 earned runs, 3 strikeouts, 1 strikeout. Is on an okay run of starts, but it's handful of earned runs each start, pretty low strikeout. It's not my favorite target. I've been talking badly about Jose Barrios for a while now. Not like super negative, but again, he's just slightly above league average. I think he gets too much hype. Arrighetti last time out struck out 10 over 7 innings against the Rockies. Easy start there, but that's a dominant start. 3 hits, no runs, no walks. 2 starts before that were ugly. 3 earned runs, 7 earned runs, struck out just 2 apiece in those games. That was against the White Sox and the Tigers. Pretty low-end opponents there. 5 2/3 against the Giants. 6 strikeouts, 1 run allowed. That wasn't bad. So again, believable upside from either one of these cheap pitchers from the middle where everybody's basically the same. I would go to the Astros bats probably a little bit more often with the contact available against Barrios. A little bit more faith there. They're also showing a little bit more upside for power. Altuve's a star at the top of the lineup. 13 home runs, 13 steals, a 134 WRC+. Bregman's up to 9 home runs, just a 102 WRC+, but up to a 150 ISO. Making better contact, doing a little bit better. He's still very cheap at 41.31. Helps lower the price of just grabbing that as a 3-man. $3,600 a piece on FanDuel, $4,900 a piece on DraftKings, and you're getting Altuve and Alvarez in there. Alvarez has 17 home runs, a 233 ISO, 151 WRC+, rates out at a 12.53, is one of the obvious plays for power upside today. Really like the Alvarez option. Top priority bat if you're going to the Astros. Jainer Diaz, 41, 29, an effective enough catcher bat for me. 101 WRC+, we're just 1 point above average, but slashing 278, 303, 415. He's hit 7 home runs. He makes very, very good contact, 47.5% hard hits on just a 13.6% barrel, 3.7% walks. A lot of balls in play, and they're very, very well struck. So Diaz makes a ton of sense for 41, 29 on FanDuel. I think he's a playable piece on FanDuel. He's downright appealing over there. Playable one-off catcher hitting cleanup here. Again, not the best matchup in the world, but that's playable as what will, I'm sure, be a low-owned catcher one-off. Jake Myers for 33-27, having an effective season, 8 homers, 7 steals, 15% better than average for run creation. Singleton's flashed a little bit of lefty power, 6 home runs, but just a 116 ISO, below average WRC+, and a major strikeout target. Can draw walks, can hit the ball hard, but a limited option at best. Jeremy Pena, scuffling along, 277, 320, 385. All this looked a lot better about 150 plate appearances ago. But he's mix and match quality playable, puts a ton of balls in play as well. A lot like Jainer Diaz, low strikeout, low walk rate. Just not hitting the ball quite as hard as Diaz is. He did have an okay day yesterday, if I'm remembering correctly. 28-26 for Loperfido, over 65 plate appearances, 305, 359, 407, a 122 WRC+, a homer, 2 steals. Playable piece, hasn't barreled the ball yet, but 38.9% hard hits. Just super high strikeout right now. But just kind of trying to find his footing with irregular plate appearances. I think he's playable. Was doing well in the minors. And then Cesar Salazar, 23-26, mix and match piece as the second catcher in that lineup. On the Blue Jays side, Bo Bichette still scuffling along, still the same 4 home runs and 4 steals. It was 77 WRC+. Nothing has been overly good for Bo Bichette outside of 16.9% strikeouts and 43.4% hard hits. Just a faith-based play, but he's very, very cheap, and he's been super talented the last couple of seasons. Was considered a star caliber shortstop before this little blip over 300 plate appearances here. So I do have a lot of faith in Bo Bichette's rebound. We just got to find it. Got to keep rolling those dice. If you're going to the Blue Jays, you're not skipping Bo Bichette for these prices. I'm sorry. Even if he's hitting down lineup, you're really not. Spencer Harwitz, 42-28. He's an on-base machine, 446 on base over 74 plate appearances. He's been tremendous in the minor leagues for getting on base, creating runs, correlated scoring. Very good option for that. He's a limited power bat. He does have 2 home runs early this season, 10% barrels, but just 30% hard hits. He's just very low strikeout, high walk, excellent at getting on base. Very, very good for correlated scoring, and he plays second base, so he's a playable part if you're just looking for some attachment to Bichette, Vladdy Guerrero, to a lesser degree, Justin Turner, or George Springer. Vladdy is still super cheap at $4,600 on DraftKings. What do we got to do? What do we have to do? How much do we got Carlos Correa's price up, so we're just going to keep banging the drum. 364 plate appearances. He's up to 13 home runs now, so the home run upside is back. Right? That's not a bad home run total over 364. He's up to a 173 ISO. Remember, this was down in like the 120s just a couple weeks ago, despite him making tremendous contact. 13.6% barrels, 57.6% hard hits. He's making significantly better contact than he has the last 2 seasons. Not striking out, drawing walks. Why the hell is he priced at $4,600 on DraftKings? $3,300 on FanDuel is even cheap. First and third base eligible on FanDuel again. I don't get the pricing on Vladdy Guerrero. I really, really don't. Turner for $36.28, I completely understand. He's got a good on base. He still correlates, but he's been really weak at everything else. Mix and match piece at third base or first base for cheap pricing for correlated scoring. Basically correlated scoring only, though. What would be really interesting would be lead off Harwitz, hit Justin Turner second, move Bo Bichette down to 5, drop George Springer another spot, or maybe even move Varsho up to 6 and George Springer 7. But I feel like Turner should be up here. You want Turner hitting ahead of Vladdy, not behind Vladdy. He is, potential reset the table for these guys right now, if this is in fact their lineup. Just a weird fit, though. He's really just on base driven right now. Springer showed some signs of life the other day, got up to 8 home runs, but has been really limited this season. You do go to him if you're stacking this team. He's, again, also very low strikeout, fair amount of walks, just not making extreme quality contact right now. But there is a lot of skill there for DFS. Any given slate, he's very cheap. Varsho has 11 home runs, but Sub Mendoza, sub 300 on base by a pretty wide margin now. 205 ISO. He's just really a power play from the left side against a middle-of-the-road kind of variety. Alejandro Kirk, I prefer Danny Jansen if we're looking for a hitter at catcher. Addison Barger, Kevin Kiermaier, mix and match pieces at best from the bottom of the lineup. Not a ton of quality there. Top 7's not bad, though, if this is the lineup. I think it's four corners, Astros bats, Arrighetti, Blue Jays bats, Barrios for me. Nah. Astros bats, Arrighetti, Barrios, Blue Jays bats. All four sides are playable. And they all have their appeal. I don't want to say they're not appealing. Again, these two teams at pretty okay run totals with a lot of low, sub 4 totals on the board today. And capable offenses, but not super high priority either. Just in the mix. So Birdsong. I referred to him at the top of the show as a potentially interesting value. Again, he's all the way down here on the board. We're not projected through the roof, but he's only 6,000 on both sites. That gets really, really interesting. Reminds me, I don't think I put a placeholder in. Again, this kid did have a 30+% strikeout rate at every level of the minor leagues over the last 2 seasons. He did walk double digits in almost all of those stops. It's limited samples across the board. But like in 2023, he went from A ball through high A up to double A. 41 2/3 in A ball, 36 innings in high A, and then 23 innings, 8 starts. So it was 10 starts, 7 starts, and 8 starts. Adds up to a basically complete season. 38% at 38% strikeouts, 12% walks at A ball. 33-1 with a 6.5 walk rate was his best walk rate in the high A starts, and then maintained 31.7 in the bump to double A, but walked 12.5% in those starts. Then this year, to start the season, he made 11 starts at double A, 48 1/3, struck out 30.7%, walked 10.1%. So there is improvement there in the walk rate year over year. Bumped up to AAA, just 2 starts at AAA, 9 innings, 33% strikeouts, but walked 14%, but that's pretty small sample, and then made the 1 start in the show. Given the opposing 24.6% strikeout rate for this confirmed Braves lineup, Birdsong is at least on the table for some strikeouts. He went 4 2/3, but ran into some trouble. Again, gave up 3 earned runs. He walked 3. He gave up a homer, 6 hits. If he pitches a little, just slightly cleaner than that, we've at least got upside for 5 and probably 6. I see no reason he couldn't go 6 if he's succeeding. It's a worthy dart throw and one of the better bargain bin options on the slate. The only real playable super low price guy, in my opinion, on the slate. Of course, the Braves could absolutely damage him. Everybody in the lineup, for the most part, is in the mid part of the board in terms of the home run numbers, 7s and 6s and 5s, and then the 2 monsters in the middle with Ozuna and Olsen both above the magic number. It's the Braves. We know that there's a ton of power in this lineup. We know there's a ton of premium contact in this lineup. They haven't been as good this season offensively as the juggernaut they were last year, but there's still a lot of danger here. So in no way is Hayden Birdsong safe, but he is an absolutely playable value dart, and there's kind of a lot of appeal on that. I realize I picked my phone up, said I never put my placeholder in, then never checked and never put it in. This is why they don't get in sometimes. Reynaldo Lopez on the other side, 79 1/3, 25.6% strikeout rate. A microscopic 1.70 ERA is absolutely phenomenal. The truth is probably more around that 3.68 xFIP. But he's been very, very successful so far this season. The bubble hasn't burst. He hasn't turned back into a pumpkin yet. Let's see. What's the recent run look like? Last time out, 5 innings, 2 earned runs. Start before that, 5 innings, no earned runs. Struck out 6 in that one against the Tigers. Struck out 5 in the most recent one that was at the Cardinals. But he walked 4 in that one. 2 earned runs on 4 hits. The limiting factor sometimes with Reynaldo is innings. He does have the ability and has completed the 6th inning a bunch of times, but you don't get a ton of upside beyond that. Most of these starts are 23, 24 hitters, which gets you right into that kind of territory. You're not playing with fire by any means if you're looking for the quality start on FanDuel. It's just he's a little bit high priced for the idea that if he gets in trouble in the 6th inning, you might get one of those 5 2/3 kind of a starts that's super frustrating. Can ruin a pretty good day at that kind of a price on FanDuel. He's got a lot of work to do competing with the very top of the board on FanDuel as well. He's a little bit more limited than those guys, but believably highly projected. Think he makes a ton of sense against a scuffling Giants team. Maybe scuffling's the wrong word. There are a lot of decent run creation numbers there. Overall, they're at a 332 average on base. Yeah, it's not bad. Scuffling's the wrong word, but there's plenty of strikeouts there. A lot of guys in the mid-20s. It averages down to a 21-1 because they've got Luis Matos over 121 plate appearances at just 9.9% strikeouts. But everybody else in that lineup outside of Patty Bailey and at the bottom of the lineup, Nick Ahmed, who is no threat, everybody else is in the 20s. Last year, the same group of hitters, 24.8%. So it's believable strikeout upside, I think, for Ronaldo. Can absolutely play him. Super interested to see what you can put together with Birdsong in your lineup on FanDuel. I haven't done it yet. Might end up going that way, but we do have a really interesting value pitcher that we'll get to that we talked about already at the top. If you're going to bats in this one, we greatly prefer the Braves. Obviously, they're pulling down a 4.73 implied total. Very, very healthy total against the rookie making his 2nd start ever. So we're going to sell it the other way around. Limited experience on the mound, even through the minors. Birdsong has not thrown a ton of innings. He's shown a lot of upside for strikeouts, but he's also put way too many guys on base in that sample, and that continued in his first start in the show. Reason to be concerned there. He checked in below average by Stuff Plus. We'll see how that balances out over a couple more starts. But seems like a gettable spot for some Braves bats with 2 guys above the magic number. 4 or 5 guys in the middle of the board for home run upside. Jared Kelenic for 39, 3,000 off the top, 9 home runs. Pretty good season for him. 278, 324, 457, 179 ISO, 118 WRC plus. Performing better than a lot of the Mariners currently. Apologies to whoever's tweet I just stole, but they gave the some of the stats, and he compares at least favorably to a lot of those Mariners. Probably wishing they had him back. 10.3% barrels, 45.5% hard hits this year. Strikeouts are down. It's been pretty decent for this team, holding down that leadoff spot effectively. Ozzie Albies is an underperforming star at second base. 254, 312, 398. Part of the Braves' problems this year has been Albies missed some time and really hasn't gotten it going since, just at league average 100 WRC plus. When that was combined with Olsen's struggles, with Riley struggling to start the season, it was really, really problematic. With Acuna's absence as well, with Orlando Arcia dramatically underperforming at short. He's not in the lineup today. So he was one of the factors for the Braves not being quite as good, but he's another player that can absolutely flip the switch. 15.6% strikeouts and 6.4% walks is directly in line with who he's supposed to be. Barrels are down, hard hits are down for Albies, but at least the frequency of contact has not disappeared by any means. So there's a lot of reason to believe that Albies could find it again, and just some happenstance separating the contact numbers. 5,400, 3,500. It's difficult to pay those prices when he's struggling, but hopefully that keeps him a little bit under-owned in this lineup or at second base. A lot of reasons to go to Ozzie Albies. A lot of faith in that player. Ozuna has been tremendous all year. 21 home runs, a 267 ISO, a 165 WRC plus, 300, 383, 568. Competitive for the Triple Crown type numbers in the National League this year. It's bonkers season for him. 6,000, 4,100, fairly high priced, or high priced, but fairly so. 5,232 for Matty Olson. Pretty cheap option at first base on FanDuel at 32. 52 is cheapish, similar kind of a price on DraftKings, but maybe a little higher relative to the cap there. 12 home runs on the season for Olson, 186 ISO. Underperforming in a lot of ways, but still, his underperformance puts him just kind of in the middle of like good power hitting first baseman with a lot of ceiling for more. So I love the option against a rookie pitcher, big lefty bat. Austin Riley, we were up to 12.8% barrels and 50.5% hard hits. Has really pulled it together over the last couple of weeks. 250, 324, 420, up to a 170 ISO, 9 home runs. Most importantly, up to a 111 WRC plus. So has really kind of gotten back to Austin Riley type numbers. Does he get the 30 home runs this year is debatable. We'll see what the second half looks like, but he's been above that mark 3 years in a row. Very believable right-handed power bat. Sean Murphy, excellent catcher option. 3 home runs on the season, 217, 293, 361 is a deceptively low triple slash. He's a lot better than that. Made fantastic contact throughout all of last season. Definitely a quality catcher power bat for just 3,500. Not a bad option on DK. You could one-off Sean Murphy here. It's not a completely terrible idea if you're just looking for a cheap catcher one-off. A lot of talent there. Adam Duvall, 32-27, has 6 home runs from the right side, but just a 122 ISO, a 52 WRC+, way sub Mendoza, way 300 on base. You're just buying cheap right-handed contact from Duvall with a little bit of home run upside. 7.21 in the model. It's not somebody to completely sneeze at, but not the top priority in this Braves lineup. Forrest Wall and Zach Short, kind of more limited down toward the bottom of the lineup. Each of those guys has stolen 2 bases. Limited, very small samples from both of these players. It kind of checks the ability to turn this lineup over a bunch of times with these 3 guys. So maybe that is a limiting factor in how much you get to the Braves. But top 6 hitters at the very least. And Duvall's on that board. Top 7 hitters are very interesting. In the Giants lineup, I really don't love the idea of targeting a Giants team with just a 3.36 implied total. Very low total against Ronaldo. He's, again, been spectacular at limiting runs. His real number's probably more in this territory, but even that is not a bad XFIP. Jorge Soler at the top of the board, top of the lineup. If this is, in fact, the Giants lineup, 9.36 in the home run model. Oh, we got the Giants lineup. So Soler at the top of the board is, again, leading off. Leadoff Jorge Soler is kind of interesting. You give him more plate appearances, get that bat going. Massive amount of right-handed power from Soler. 9 home runs on the season, just a 169 ISO, but he's up to a 106 WRC+. Maybe some signs of life. 9.2% barrels and 37.4% hard hits is still a far cry from 15% and 48% last year, but they've trended up a little bit over the last couple of weeks. Lamont Wade still hits the ball very hard. Excellent contact numbers, 326, 460, 420. Fantastic table setter with a little bit of premium contact and power upside. Just 3,600, 2,600. Probably my favorite bat in this lineup from the left side of the plate. Really like Lamont Wade's skill set. Elliot Ramos, 16.5% barrels and 52.6% hard hits over 212 plate appearances, resulted in a 214 ISO. Created runs 49% better than average, 10 home runs on the board already. Has been tremendous since joining this team. 4,800, 3,300. Still very fairly priced. On DraftKings especially, I don't know how he's still below 5,000. That makes him very interesting if you're looking at Giants bats. Patty Bailey, another playable catcher for a cheap price. If you're looking for one-off catchers, you could do worse than Patty Bailey. Just 4,000 on the DraftKings slate for a sub 20% strikeout rate, higher than 10% walk rate, 42.6% hard hits, 6 home runs so far on the season, a 127 WRC+. Switch hitter who gets involved in the offense frequently. Hitting cleanup, that is a very good catcher option. Again, it's just in the sense of like, I filled out a really good lineup and I've only got 4,000 left and I left catcher open because it didn't play well with my stack. Who can I use? Pat Bailey is a good answer to that question. Sean Murphy for 35 and maybe you can upgrade a pitching spot is probably an even better answer to that question. Jainer Diaz was on that board. We talked about him already. A lot of interesting catchers to target that way, and he would be included in giant stacks on DraftKings. I think you could get away with him on FanDuel, especially without, given Lamont Wade with the util ability, obviously, you can put it together however you want. But given that Lamont Wade has outfield eligibility, you could kind of consider Patrick Bailey a first baseman on the FanDuel slate. Chapman for 46, 31, 11 home runs, a 172 ISO, still makes tremendously good contact. Michael Conforto in the lineup today. A lot of good contact out of him from the left side, 3,800, 2,600. 9 home runs on the season, a 192 ISO, creating runs 6% better than average. 45% hard hits on 10.6% barrels. He's been pretty effective. A limited option, 232 plate appearances, been getting some platoon spots. But when he's in the lineup, he's worth going to at these prices. There's a lot of upside in that bat. 7.24 in the home run model. Brett Wisely can hit the ball a little bit from the left side. 296, 325, 444. Creating runs 20% better than average. 3 home runs on the board and 114 plate appearances. 10+% barrels. Not a bad click at second base or shortstop for 35 on DraftKings. 3 positions at 25 on FanDuel. Mike Yastrzemski back in the lineup. A lot of premium contact out of him. 7 home runs in 215. Everything about the slash line has been a little bit rough this year for Yaz, but he is creating runs 4% better than average. And you're just buying cheap premium contact from a lefty bat down there.
Again, not looking to target Ronaldo all that often, but if you do, you've got interesting bat with platoon advantage. And Brett Wisely's actually probably that whole run of lefties right there should be in the mix for some shares. They're going to be really low owned. So if you're going to this team, keep those guys in mind as you build primarily with those guys. Nick Ahmed, kind of an afterthought at the bottom of the lineup. Sorry, Nick. You're the only guy in the lineup creating runs below average, and you're 20% worse than average. Mix and match at the best. Let's go Braves bats up top, followed by Ronaldo, then followed by Hayden Birdsong value, which I like quite a bit at just 6,000 on both sides. And then Giants bats are just kind of an afterthought. You can mix and match your way to some Giants shares over 150 lineups. They could be in your portfolio, but it's not a priority spot. I think they rank pretty far down the stacks board. Mamba's looking at Jake for some pitching tips, and he's saying, I think my model is finally right. Been tweaking it all season, listening to Terry and chat, and finally think I got it right. Love to hear it, buddy. That's awesome. Soler on December 19th against Lopez? What are they, having a boxing match? I can't imagine Dimitri's in here talking about BVP. I don't care. Those are great results, but it doesn't matter. You can cherry pick 19 plate appearances all you want. It does not matter. Those are great results. Maybe he does see the ball really, really well out of Ronaldo's hand. Jorge Soler is just a ridiculously good power hitter when he's going right. You could find similar stretches against a lot of pitchers for Jorge Soler. I'm sure of it. Nothing predictive about that, and nothing we can really quantify about that. It's super small sample. You shouldn't be looking at PVPD. And again, those are tremendous results. And I'm not saying, in all the BVP conversations, I'm not saying that there is no way that hitters have advantage against certain pitchers. Like I said, see the ball really well out of their hand. Maybe they've picked up something in matchups where, like, all right, if he's going to throw a curveball, he ticks his elbow here. Typically, that'll result in him telling everybody on the team, and you would see a really big day. But there are things like that can be impacted there. It's just you're never dealing with a large enough sample that you can actually pull data out of it. Typically, you're looking at samples like that, 19 plate appearances. Say the next 50 plate appearances or he goes 0 for. You're certainly not going to look at it as appealing. It probably wouldn't go 0 for over 50, but you get me. So you never get enough sample to actually be able to quantify anything with it. So I always try and shoot down BVP conversations for what we're doing here. But that is in no way saying that certain hitters don't own certain pitchers and vice versa. That absolutely does happen. It's just not something we want to think about because we can't manage the numbers. We can't manage the data. We can't tell what's real and what's not. Yeah, Lone Wolf nails it. No one and rightfully so. They shouldn't be. If anybody's out there telling you BVP numbers and like, asking you for money or even asking for like clicks and likes and shit, just you're probably on the wrong stream. Good game here. Tariq Skubal going against the Twins. Got them checked down to a fairly low run total for a team that's created a lot of runs this season. They were looking at just a 3.65, and then on the other side, 3.93, and then on the other side, the Tigers at just 3.65. They're going up against Simeon Wood Richardson, who we have talked about a couple times already, is a fair play from the middle of the board. He's the bottom point in that list of same guys that's right there. But he's easily playable. We used that, the hell was the guy's name? Jefferson Davis? It was something Davis. Davis Daniels. Davis Daniel? Daniel Davis? Daniel Day-Lewis? Whatever the hell the guy's name was. We picked off a really good start against the Tigers the other day, and I think you've got that kind of upside on any given slate for Simeon Wood Richardson. You roll this 100 times, he probably beats them effectively right around half, with 25% or so of those being very good starts. He's got a 3.41 ERA and a 4.32 xFIP. The xFIP's the real number, 20.5% strikeouts, 9.1% swinging, 24.5% CSW. Has not been tremendous for strikeouts, but he's facing a team with a 24.2% strikeout rate for this projected version of the lineup. I'll see if we got the confirmed. He's had three of his last 5 performances. He's had 6 strikeouts. Let's call it 6. In his last 6 starts, He struck out either 4 or 6. He did half each. 4 strikeouts in 50% of those games, 6 strikeouts in the others. He gave up 4 earned runs. I talked about these starts a little bit at the top of the show. 4 innings, 4 earned runs against Oakland in a rough one, 4 strikeouts, 4 walks. The other starts around that are pretty effective. He gave up those 4 runs in that start, and he gave up 5 earned runs back on May 11th against Toronto in 4 1/3. Has given up 3 earned runs or fewer every other game. Has only given up 3 twice. The depth is a little challenging on FanDuel. He did complete 6 2 starts ago, 5 1/3, so he pitched into the 6th inning in his last start, 6 1/3 several starts back. A lot of 5 1/3 type starts in here, 5 innings, 4 and change. But if he's going right, no reason to think that they wouldn't leave him in there for the 6th against this team. Just 2.2% home runs, a lot of barrels, a lot of launch angles, so probably getting a little bit lucky in the home run department right now. This kind of contact doesn't necessarily add up to that low a home run rate. Gave up 2 home runs in 2 different games on the season. 1 home run in 2 other games and no home runs in the rest of the mix. Has also had a pretty decent run of opponents. Faced the White Sox twice, the Mariners, Nationals, the Pirates, the A's, the Rays, the Tigers. Beginning of the season. First start of the year, 6 innings, 5 strikeouts, 1 earned run, 2 hits against this Tigers team. That was a good one. A lot of similar to, low-end teams as to the opponent tonight. So believable that he could sustain this kind of quality that he's shown with a little bit of additional upside to maybe a 1 4 strikeout day. Get me the 6 strikeouts for these prices. I'm happy. Skubal on the other side is just tremendous. 2.32 ERA, a 2.93 xFIP, 29.1% strikeouts, 4.9% walks. The biggest thing working against Tariq Skubal is not the opponent tonight. It's not the fact that the Twins have a lot of good run creators. It's not the fact that there are some good bats in that Twins lineup, that he's not really supported by a good offense. The biggest thing working against Tariq Skubal tonight is that I just traded for him over the weekend, and he's making his first start for my Dynasty team today. So that's not great for Tariq Skubal's output. Probably just going to completely implode, put 10 runs on my earned run ledger, and blow up. End up checking out for the rest of the season. The last time I made a trade with EMAC where I gave him a high-quality infielder, it was Bryce Turang 2 years ago, and I got Sandy Alcantara in the deal, and everybody was like, oh, you gave him a good prospect, but man, you got the best pitcher, blah, 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 and then Alcantara was just terrible, blew out his elbow. I traded him away just before that happened. But hopefully that's not the case, knock on wood, for Tariq Skubal here. Tremendous option. Happy to have him. Very high priced, totally worth it. Best pitcher in fantasy over the last full season, stretching back to last year. The Twins have just a 19.2% strikeout rate. Same group of hitters last year was at 22.4%. You do still have Royce Lewis in there at 17.5 in a small sample of 97 plate appearances. He was 23% last year. Carlos Correa outperforming last year in terms of strikeouts, 17.5 down from 22.6. He's been absolutely tremendous this season. So there's a couple of potentially deceptive strikeout numbers in there, but let's call it like a 1 in 5 for their side, but he's up near 30% and has been. So I do think we've got upside to like the 1 in 4 kind of strikeout territory. We've definitely got upside to 7 innings. Quality start, easily on the board. He went 7 in the last one. Just 4 in that ugly start against the Braves. Went 6 1/3 in a 4 earned run game against the Astros in the start before that one. So it's 7 innings, 4 innings, 6 1/3, 6 2/3, 6, 7. So a pretty solid stretch of going 6 plus. Gave you a quality start in all but one of those. It's an excellent option. You can draw some Twins bats against. It's not a spot where I would by any means say, oh, if you take Tariq Skubal, you have to hedge. But if you want a good team at a low ownership angle, the Twins qualify for that, and they're cheap. So you get a little bit of upside playing the Twins, just game theory-wise. Manny Margot in the leadoff spot, not ideal, but he's up there because they're facing a lefty. 85 WRC+, making pretty weak contact, pretty weak results so far. Manny's entirely skippable from the top spot. He's mostly here to play defense. Carlos Correa at the shortstop position, again, just a tremendous year. 311, 380, 502, a 149 WRC+. He's up to 9 home runs, a 191 ISO, 9.6% barrels, 47% hard hits. You heard it here first, folks. Carlos Correa, tremendous season this year, and honestly still a little bit cheap at $5,200 on DraftKings. Even $34 on FanDuel. He could be $200-$300 more on both sides. Royce Lewis, 10 home runs in 97 plate appearances is tremendous. The 391 ISO can absolutely go deep against anybody, Tariq Skubal included. 9.58 in the home run model. You can't keep him down with that kind of results. 15.5% barrel so far this season. Very expensive, but priority bat if you're going to the Twins. Everybody else is cheap going down the lineup. Jose Miranda, 37.29, playable piece. Good run creator, good putter of balls into play. It got clunky there as I was trying to say that. Solid 340 on base, a 297 average. Has always been a good line drive hitter. A lot of balls in play, well struck, 14.1% strikeouts, just 5.4% walks. Low strikeout, low walk, a lot of balls in play, 40+% hard hits. Carlos Santana, up to 12 home runs, a 188 ISO. He's always low strikeout, draws his walks, but a very good bat. Switch hitter in the lineup, 4,200 at first base. Absolute priority in that lineup if you're stacking Twins for a very, very fair price. Byron Buxton has really been coming on. After we were really talking down about Buxton's performance this year, it's up to a 200 ISO, 8 home runs, 260, 309, 460, up to a 117 WRC+, 9.8% barrels, 46.4% hard hits. It's looking a lot more like Byron Buxton. There's upside there. Ryan Jeffers, 8.53 in the home run model. He's got 13 on the season with a 237 ISO. Another underrated power bat at catcher. 10.1% barrels. The hard hits aren't great, 30.9%, but 4,500, 3,000, totally playable catcher option. Willie Castro having a good year for run creation, not stealing as many bags. He's got 10 on the season. 7 home runs, though, a little bit of uptick in power output, and just getting on at a 357 clip, doing a lot of correlated scoring. 4 positions on FanDuel for 3,000 is great. 4,400 with second base eligibility on DraftKings. I love it. Kyle Farmer, we went to a bunch of times in years past, mostly last year, because of cheap multi-position with a little bit of power potential. But he has not done that at all for us this season. So more of an afterthought down lineup right now. The barrel rate has been cut by 2/3. The hard hits are way down. And he was just moderate output last year, but he did steal us 11 home runs. Had a 152 ISO over 369 plate appearances as a super cheap option with multi-position. That was the reason we ever discussed Kyle Farmer. And if he's not giving us that, it's pretty limited. If you're going to the Tigers, they are playable against Simeon Woods Richardson. You got Justin Henry Malloy. I almost said his name instead of the other three name in this game. Malloy has been all right for this team. He does have 3 home runs already in just 73 plate appearances, a 175 ISO, 11.1% barrels. He's very, very cheap down lineup. Let me see if we got the confirmed. Doesn't look like. So, down lineup. He's better if he hits higher up in the batting order. Gets more appealing that way, plate appearances wise, opportunity wise, to correlate with the guys that we typically want in this lineup. Wensil Perez off the top. If he's leading off, he's more interesting. 320 on base, 3 homers, 6 steals, a 103 WRC plus, over 248. Doesn't really hit the ball hard. Not a bad option for limiting strikeouts, but he's right around the average. Nothing special about Wensil Perez, but playable. Riley Green for $51.33 is honestly slightly cheap. Call it $200-$300 cheap for him. 15 home runs at 227 ISO. He's created runs 33% better than average. Barreling the ball 13% of the time with a 47.4% hard hit rate. Riley Green is your top priority Tigers bat if you're going to Tigers against Woods Richardson here. I'd be curious to see the Tigers ownership, honestly. Because there's enough quality like right here and here. And then believable, at least for correlated scoring with Mark Canha, believable cheap quality in Colt Keith, who has not been good but does have skills. Gets a little bit more thin down the bottom, but maybe it's like a 3-man. Like that little 3-man there is interesting. You could stretch to 5 and do that. If Henry Malloy is hitting higher up in the lineup, he would qualify there. I'm sure they're not popular. Especially if Woods Richardson's drawing any kind of heat for being a value pitcher. There's some kind of awful beep coming from outside. It's not like a beep, beep, beep. It's like a sustained high-pitched noise. I hope other people in the world can hear this and it's not just me like having a stroke or something. Let's see, the Tigers. Yeah, low single digit ownership on FanDuel per RGs. I assume the same is true on DraftKings. So maybe it's a little bit of an angle kind of a play. But as discussed, typically I'd like to do that with a better team. Yeah, low single digits on DK as well. Let's see who the scroll. Oof, I tell you what, Woods Richardson is drawing really interestingly low ownership on DK. I'm surprised. I thought he was going to be more popular than this. This is all assuming that they're right. What the fuck? It went off and then it started again. Assuming that they're right. And again, he's down here, but these guys are all basically the same. And some of these guys are higher owned. I got more interested in Woods Richardson just now, seeing that DraftKings ownership number. That gives him a little bit of appeal. It's sub 10%, which is really, really good. Soriano higher owned. Mitch Spence higher owned on the other side of that game. And then it's Woods Richardson. And then Birdsong a few points behind Woods Richardson, also in single digits. Interesting. No idea whether they're correct, of course, but interesting. Continuing on with the Tigers lineup, you get Marcana, who again, veteran hitter with good ability to get on base, but we're down to 228, 335, 343. Should probably move his on-base skills back up to the top of the lineup where he could be an effective correlated scoring piece. Right now, miscast as a cleanup hitter, does have 6 home runs. He's an effective bat. He'll probably get traded out of the Tigers before the deadline. Colt Keith, 3,000, 2,600. Again, very cheap, underperforming his talent levels. 4 home runs, 4 steals, a 68 WRC+. Plus. Has shown a few spots of quality. Is limiting strikeouts pretty well, but limited premium contact numbers, not hitting like he did in the minor leagues, but still a top-end prospect. Young kid, still finding his footing. You definitely can get there for a cheap price at second base if you're going to this team. He's still a top priority bat on this team. It's probably Green, Vierling, and then him. Gio Urshela at 29, 24 is an afterthought. Not a good hitter, never has been. Zach McKinstry, basically the same thing, probably worse. Henry Malloy, I do think is kind of interesting if he's, especially if he's hitting higher up in the lineup. And then Jake Rogers is kind of a mix and match catcher for a little bit of power appeal. Suffering just above the Mendoza line at 257 on base is awful. 6 home runs, but a 145 WRC plus with a 145 ISO with a 72 WRC plus. Just makes okay contact where the ball travels a little bit from time to time, but not a great spot. Priorities are through here. Tariq Skubal, Simeon, Woods Richardson, Twins bats, Tigers bats if I had to rank them, but bats probably more off the board than not on both sides of this one. Pods and the Rangers, we got to hit the accelerator a little bit. We're kind of luxuriating our way through this slate. The Tigers lineup landed Henry Malloy up to 6th, Akil Baddoo hitting 7th, Creedler hitting 9th, Jake Rogers 8th. So Henry Malloy gets a little bit more interesting. Akil Baddoo also an interesting bat, lefty bat in there with a little bit of counting stat skill. Let's keep this rolling though. Padres and the Rangers. We've got the Rangers lineup, not the Padres up on Labs. We'll just take the easy one to grab. So a couple of good pitchers here, but as we talked about at the top of the show, both these guys, as talented as they are, can get dinged for runs from time to time. So I don't think it makes either one of these teams completely unplayable given the talent in these lineups. If I'm drawing shares, I probably do it with the Rangers because I think that's a better lineup right now. There's a lot of skilled players in that, underperformances aside. It's a little bit more limited on the San Diego side with no Tatis. Having a lot of faith in Profar and Cronenworth isn't exactly what I want to be doing more often than not. More limited lineup hitters down the lineup, although you do have a very interesting Kyle Higashioka if he's in the lineup, and interesting Ha-Sung Kim if he's in the lineup, and then an honestly dramatically underpriced Jackson Merrill. We'll get to that in just a second. But between the two, I probably prefer the Rangers. But on the whole, I think we go pitching here. 10-3, 10-2 across sites for Dylan Cease with one of the top projections on the board. 3.84 ERA with a 3.22 xFIP, 14.4% swinging strikes, a 31.3% strikeout rate. Believe that might be the highest on our slate. It's been tremendous. Gives up a little bit of premium contact from time to time. 10.7% barrels on a 15-degree average launch isn't ideal, but it's only resulted in 2.76% home runs. Maybe a little lucky to have home runs there, given that kind of contact. But overall, very, very good. 22 points, almost 23 points better than average rating by Stuff Plus. You can see his opponent slightly below average Stuff Plus rating, but has been good over time. 22.9% strikeout rate last year, 22.4 the year before, 3.63 ERA with a 3.96 xFIP last year. Was pretty good at limiting premium contact, keeping the ball down, so he checks power that way. You just do have the occasional slip out of Eovaldi, but this year we're at 24.7% strikeouts on 13.3% swinging with a 30% CSW. Those are tremendous numbers. You could honestly get a little bit even more strikeout out of that uptick. Last time out, he gave up 5 earned runs on 9 hits, but did finish 7 innings, struck out 4 and walked 1, 2 home runs allowed. Not an ideal start. That was at Milwaukee. Similar kind of opponent. Kansas City, the start before that, struck out 6, walked 1, gave up a homer, 2 earned runs allowed. Has given up exactly 1 home run, or gave up 2 home runs in the last one, and then exactly 1 for 4 straight starts before that. Handful of strikeouts in each game. Kept runs basically in check. He had the 5 earned run game and then a 4 earned run game against Seattle, over which he only went 3 innings. Struck out 6, walked 4. That was a clunky one. But a good 7-inning start against San Francisco. Decent 5 2/3 against Detroit. Another short outing against Arizona. I don't know what happened in that one. Oh, that was his first start back from the injury. So we won't count that one. And then before the injury was kind of rolling. So I do think Eovaldi's playable. Padres are very low strikeout on the other side, though, 17.7%. And this Rangers lineup, the confirmed version, just 17.8. That is with a 0 in there. If we take that 0 out, it's 20%. I think it's fair to do that. So still a very low strikeout Rangers team on the other side. If you're looking at bats, starting on the Padres side, 47.28 is aggressively low price for Luis Arraez, one of the better table setters in baseball. 350 on base, 314 average, doing Luis Arraez things, slightly lower level so far than last year, but a much better lineup position now, hitting at the top of the Padres lineup than the top of the Marlins. 114 WRC plus, he's always in play for 3-4 hits. Jurickson Profar, 4,300, priced up at 3,400 on FanDuel. That's a mismatch. This is generously low on DraftKings. Even I will say that for current year Jurickson Profar, that's a very low price. He's been way better than that price. 314, 408, 476. He's created runs 58% better than average over a full half season at this point. He's hit 11 home runs, making very good contact. He's been way better than that price. I'm not comfortable with this price for him, 3,400 on FanDuel, but it is correct. Outfield and first base eligibility plays nicely. Second base for Cronenworth on DK at 46. Second and first on FanDuel. He's got 12 home runs, a 178 ISO, 121 WRC plus. You can see when we're talking about ISOs, we're always looking for our true power bats, our guys who are over 200 or at least in the 190 territory. So nobody's actually in that range this season, which is kind of revealing about the power output, the home run output for both, I think, Profar and Cronenworth. Manny Machado's just having an off year so far. 10 home runs, just a 141 ISO. The slash line is stable, 268, 318, 408. He is creating runs 8% better than average. He's still making effective contact. Hard hits are actually up year over year, but barrels are down. That's where some of the home runs in the ISO went. But that could absolutely snap back into form. I think he's not incorrectly priced at 54 on DK. 3,200, probably a couple $100 cheap on FanDuel. Donovan Solano, another one of those line drive type hitters. He's got 3 home runs in just 146 plate appearances, but that's more happenstance than anything. What we're looking for out of Solano is some on base, some correlated scoring, a good line drive type bat. And he's been effective at that, creating runs 17% better than average in the medium sample. I'm going to skip Merrill for a second. Ha-Seong Kim for just 44. 3,000 on FanDuel, shortstop only on both sites now. Getting on at a 336 clip, has 10 home runs and 15 stolen bases with a 111 WRC plus, and that's all we really need to know. If he starts hitting for average again, that'll be great. But as long as he's getting on and providing his correlated scoring with the occasional home run, totally happy with it. Kyle Higashioka is up to 9 home runs in 103 plate appearances. 327 ISO. We've gone through this with Higashioka every time he's in a lineup, and he's on a slate for the last 2 years. But again, he's a catcher that nobody ever plays. Maybe he's more popular now given the home run output in the very short sample since he's been filling in. He had a ridiculous run through the end of June. But he has always made very, very effective contact. Hit 10 home runs in each of the last 2 seasons in 200 and change plate appearances. So we're 1 home run off of that total in fewer than half the plate appearances from the last 2 years. Higgy is a underappreciated masher at the bottom of the lineup. Bryce Johnson, take him or leave him at the 9 spot. And then Jackson Merrill, again, just 4,200 on DraftKings. That is a glaringly low price. That combined with this, you get some cheap production out of these Padres. Merrill's only providing an 8.6% barrel rate with 43.6% hard hits in his rookie season, striking out just 16% of the time with a 4.6 walk rate. So that equals what? A lot of hard hit balls in play. 12 home runs, 9 stolen bases, creating runs 28% better than average while slashing 294, 328, 464, and contending for the Rookie of the Year award. What more does a guy have to do to get his price up, DraftKings? It's an interesting option if you're stacking pods against Eovaldi. Outside of the obvious guys up top, starting with 5, I'd say priority 1. Tough call between these two. It's priority 1. I'm going to say priority 2 with Higgy, especially if we're talking DraftKings. 3,200 at catcher. And then Kim is easily in the mix. Shortstop is just a premium position these days. A lot of good shortstops available. There is not one of those premium shortstops in the confirmed lineup on the other side, though. I didn't notice that when I first put it in a second ago. No Corey Seager today. Marcus Semien, and Seager's missed a couple. He's been banged up a little bit. Josh Smith has been filling in at short. And then I guess Jonathan Ornelas is dropping into third base today. You still get a very good Semien off the top. 11 home runs from him. Just 299 on base. Struggling in the triple slash department. Not making quite the same level of contact. Hard hits are down slightly, but it's almost a dead match for 2 years ago, and he's not off the mark at all. The barrels are actually a dead match for last year's barrels. I don't think we're far off the quality for Semien to have a nice little run over a few weeks and normalize his numbers a little bit in that slash line, but he is down at a 92 WRC+. That's why his price is only 4,800, 3,300. Typically a much more expensive player. Josh Smith, 42, 3,000 has been very effective. 293, 84, 451. Probably not this hitter over a full stretch and didn't have a great last 10 days or so, but he's been getting regular opportunities at the top of the lineup. He's a decent lefty bat with some contact skills. So if you're going here, he's definitely a priority bat. 139 WRC+ is the highest on the team among guys with realistic plate appearance samples. Nathaniel Lowe back in the 3 spot. I like that for him. 3,500, 2,900. I like those prices for us if we're stacking Rangers. If nothing else, he's a good correlated scoring piece. He's got a little bit more power than he's shown so far this year, a little bit more premium contact skills. But at least he's getting on base, 349 on base. Dynamite correlated scoring option if you're going here. Adolis Garcia for 45.33. FanDuel's closer to the mark. DraftKings has that price way low. 14.4% barrels, 47.2% hard hits, 16 home runs. Slash line has been really weak. That's why the price is so down on DraftKings. 221 with a 285 on base, 425 slug. He does have the 204 ISO, 96 WRC+. He's been mostly home run or bust this year, a lot more so than in years past, but he's a very, very good home run option. Wyatt Langford hit for the cycle the other day, completed it with a home run, his 4th of the year. He's got 7 stolen bases. Good speed, pretty good contact skills, pretty good driver of the baseball, 41.8% hard hits. It's coming around. I think it's time to start talking about get Wyatt Langford while he's still cheap. I think there's a lot of upside there. 4,000 on DK, again, very, very cheap. It's just not a good spot against Dylan Cease for any of these guys. Jonah Heim, 33-27, playable catcher with a little bit of power upside, but has been really, really inconsistent this year. Derek Hill has made tremendous contact over his first 25 plate appearances. Got 3 home runs and 2 steals. He broke a slate the other day, if memory serves. 191 WRC+. If he continues these numbers, he's one of the best players in baseball. I don't think that happens, but he's a mix and match piece for 25 on both sides. Lourdes Taveras, 28-24. Pretty limited in terms of the average, the on base. Does provide counting stats from time to time, but it's not been the same kind of year this year for Taveras. And then Ornelas, dead min at third base. Mix and match piece, I guess. Three home runs, 7 steals in AAA this year, over 259. Mediocre slash line, 66 WRC plus. Ugh, yeah. Ornelas is dead min for a reason. Pretty skippable bottom of the lineup, actually. So it would be both pitchers with Dylan Cease on top of Eovaldi above both offenses. Again, both these teams at pretty low end totals. But mix and match parts, playable. It's more a four corners game than it's not, just because of the quality in both of these lineups. But greatly prefer both pitchers, Cease, Eovaldi, and then probably Rangers pods. Phillies in the Cubs, some believable upside for offense in this one. Labs has it as a 12-mile-an-hour wind blowing out to left. It seemed like Roth had it a little bit lower than that. But wind appreciably blowing out. Solid 9.5 run total. Both teams above 4.5 runs, with the Cubbies coming in over 5. This is a little bit earlier in the day. 4.5 runs on the Philly side. It is a diminished version of the Phillies lineup. There's still a lot of appeal there. Everybody's pretty cheap now, outside of Trey Turner and a little bit Alec Boehm. Both those guys are your top 2 priority bats in this lineup, of course. But you've got some interesting names kind of late in the lineup at cheap prices with a little bit of appealing upside. They're going up against Hayden Wisniewski for one thing. 3.60 ERA with a 3.87 xFIP. Those aren't terrible numbers. 23.5% strikeouts, 8.6% walks aren't bad. What's appealing is targeting all this premium contact with some of those lefties in that lineup. It's 11 points below average for Stuff Plus. It's got an okay whip. This is a little bit high on the walk rate, slightly higher by like a point than you'd want it, but totally fine there. 10.2% swinging is fine. He's not awful. That's mostly in relief, bulk relief. He made 3 starts early in the season, and then he rejoined the rotation for 4 innings in his most recent outing. So there's a lot of uptick in terms of being able to go max effort over the 45 innings, just 4 starts. A lot of 3 strikeouts in an inning, faced 4 hitters, struck out 3 of them kind of performances in here. Last year, in a more complete sample of starting, 11 starts, 89 and a third, 21.9% strikeout. So you can see a little bit of the dip there. 9% swinging versus the 10.2. So he's nobody's priority, I don't think. I don't think you're even really getting him out of the bargain bin down there in this hitting environment, even against a team, Phillies lineup, with no Bryce Harper and no Kyle Schwarber, both of whom are on the IL. Going the other way, Michael Mercado, 7,000, 5,700. Talk about him for a second. Threw 1 inning in his debut the other day. 3 hitters faced. Struck out 1. No hits, no walks, no nothing. In AAA, he was throwing some full starts. 6 innings in his most recent one. That was on the 18th against the Baltimore affiliate. Gave up 3 earned in that one. 5 innings to start before that. 4 2/3. A couple of 3-inning games, but then a couple 5-inning games. Moderately effective option, but probably not going to have any kind of security of innings going against a Cubs team that is underperformed in terms of wins this year, but has some interesting lineup. I realize I just noticed that I put the Cubs lineup in the. Oh no, I didn't. I put the Phillies lineup in the Cubs. That's what I did. You guys are probably yelling that at me in the chat. Oh, come on. That's so annoying. Copy. Paste. There we go. I don't know why you can't cut paste and have the formula work. There's the Cubs. So, some appreciable power numbers on the Cubs side in this one. 5+ run total. I don't think we really need to consider Michael Mercado. Even though he's cheap. Just doesn't seem like the right environment to grab that kind of a pitcher. In AAA this year, 22.8% strikeouts. That's over 47 and a third, 10 starts, 14 games. Has a 1.71 ERA, but a 5.35 xFIP to ram the point home. Got to that 1.71 ERA on a 2.40 BABIP. So, yeah, I think he's a gettable pitcher. I don't think he's somebody we're going to want to play. Phillies bats starting from the top. Our home run pick of the day hitting 6th. So we're not starting from the top. We'll start from the top compared to the two teams. We're going to start right here. Mr. Cody Clemens, 2,600 on the FanDuel slate, 3,900 first and third base on DraftKings, has second base eligibility, which I absolutely love on FanDuel. 9.41 in the home run model, leads the Philadelphia Phillies today. Solid lefty bat with a lot of premium contact skills so far this year in just 50 plate appearances. He's hit 3 home runs, has a 313 ISO, 131 WRC plus. No real reason to get excited about 50 plate appearances, but it's continuing an okay stretch of power. 4 home runs last year in 148 major league plate appearances. Had a 40.4% hard hit, just 6.1% barrels. Believable that he would improve, maybe not to this level in an extended sample, but believable that with a little bit more seasoning, he's hitting a little bit more frequently. He also has 5 home runs over 130 plate appearances in AAA this season with a 202 ISO, 261, 323, 462 down there. Believable home run bat. Think he's kind of interesting. Think he's going to be lower owned than he should be for a very, very cheap price against this pitcher. Going back to the top of the lineup, though, again, we want to look at some of these lefties. Bryson Stott, definitely interesting from the top. He's got 20 stolen bases, getting on at a 336 clip. Interesting enough as an individual contributor. Pretty low strikeout, high walk, a lot of ability to get on base ahead of Trey Turner, Alec Bohm, Brandon Marsh, who we like through the middle, and can contribute individually. For infrequent home run hitter, just a 116 ISO, but 20 steals is appealing. Turner's a superstar shortstop, 332, 384, 453, creating runs 38% better than average. Not hitting for quite as much power, but still driving the ball effectively. We're just down a little bit in terms of barrels and home runs. The ISO's down at just 121, but a 45.1% hard hit, slashing 332, 384, 53. A lot of appeal there. Alec Bohm has 10 home runs from the right side, over 351 opportunities. Very good contact metrics from Alec Bohm. 3,500 on FanDuel, 58 on DraftKings, has first base eligibility on FanDuel. That's interesting. Slashing 300, 350, 489. Very, very strong season from Alec Bohm so far. Brandon Marsh, a playable lefty bat. What I like about Brandon Marsh has always been his premium contact skills. Last year, 9.1% barrels, 48.7% hard hits. Gone down slightly in barrels, but up in hard hits this year. 7 home runs, 9 steals. Gets on base at a 350 clip over his 234 opportunities, and is effectively cheap in the heart of this lineup. Really like the Marsh play. Nicky Castellanos, 4,400, 2,900, up to 11 home runs, just a 154 ISO, 10 points below average for run creation. But we know he's a quality player, made much better contact last year. He has been up and down over the past few seasons, but as far as like any given slate DFS kind of plays go, he's definitely in the mix for shares in Philly lineups. Clemens I talked about, but David Dahl, Garrett Stubbs below him in the lineup here at very cheap prices with a little bit of opportunity from the left side as well. Dahl hits the ball relatively hard. Decent, at least a decent ability to barrel the ball. He's got 3 home runs in 52 plate appearances with a 229 ISO. That's a very small sample, but we've seen this guy succeed for a little bit of power over time. Stubbs has just 1 home run in 96 opportunities, has been pretty limited. And then bottom of the lineup, Johan Rojas has been limited. He's just mostly here to play good outfield. He has stolen 15 bases, but he's only getting on at a 273 clip, so you're not exactly stolen base hunting with Rojas most of the time. From Dahl up, though, there's a lot of interesting bats. On the Cubs side, let's see what you guys are talking about. Phillies are too expensive, not a good team without Harper and Schwarber. Marsh at cleanup is just dumb, should be Castellanos. Wholeheartedly disagree with that. Why would you want Castellanos at cleanup over Marsh? Marsh hits the ball harder, more frequent contributor, especially this year. Left-handed against the righty. I think you could argue for Castellanos 3, Bohm 5, but that doesn't really hold up to this year's numbers. I think Marsh is kind of ideal in the cleanup spot today. I'm going to disagree with that, Mama. I also don't think they're really all that expensive. Like, if you actually look at these prices for the hitters that we're talking about, and you could just 5-man that top end, and you're paying $5,000. I guess that is kind of high. It's driven up by these two. That's the problem. But yeah, I guess that average price is a little bit high 4-man on FanDuel, 32. That's a little bit of a discount. Phil's maybe more appealing as a 4-man on FanDuel than as a 5-man on DraftKings. How about we go there? Turner at 600. Turner's worth 6,000. Like, that's not a misprice for Trey Turner. Not even close. But yeah, he is expensive. You're right. These two guys do drive up that average. But these guys at these cheap prices are all kind of appealing. Call it a tie. Anyway, Nico on the other side, 4,200 to lead off, 14 stolen bases, getting on at a 334 clip. Mix and match piece in the middle infield on either site for a fair price. Michael Busch, a lot of power upside, 7.96 in the home run model. He's got second base eligibility, which I love on FanDuel. First base only, but comes at a very cheap price given the 12% barrels, the 10 home runs and 281 plate appearances, creating runs 29% better than average, a 188 ISO. Very, very cheap at first base against this pitcher. That's really appealing. Love that he has second base eligibility, and honestly, 2,600 is a big underprice on FanDuel too. That's a super, super appealing spot. Cody Bellinger, 57.31, arguably a little bit high, honestly, on DraftKings. Out of everybody, like that could be 52, somewhere around there, given this year's output. Just a 149 ISO, 9 home runs, a 109 WRC plus, slashing 267, 327, 416. It's a player that I like, but I feel like he's pricey on DK. 31 on FanDuel is about right. That should equate to low fives on DraftKings, if not lower. Seiya Suzuki, 5,000, 3,200, right back to fair pricing. 10 home runs out of him on the season, a 197 ISO, 122 WRC plus. Totally worthwhile and cheaper than Bellinger. Ian Happ, the switch hitter, 4,000, 3,200, bargain on DK, let's say. Fairly priced on FanDuel. The average is down this year, but the on-base is at 345. He's created runs 20% better than average. We're up to a 190 ISO. He's up to 11 home runs after a little bit of a surge. 12.6% barrels, 42.9% hard hits. From a guy that has proven it over time, what am I missing here with Ian Happ? Why is he 4,000? That's really, really cheap. For a team, again, with a 5+ run total against a nothing opponent in a ballpark with some favorable hitting conditions tonight, super cheap. Super cheap. Cheap enough. Overpriced, oddly. Cheap enough. Very cheap. These Cubbies are interesting. Chris Morel hits for a ton of power, 15 home runs. He's sub Mendoza. He's a 307 on base, 96 WRC plus, and just a 177 ISO. But probably the best home run hitter in this projected version of the lineup. 8.64 in the home run model. Slightly behind the 8.90 for Belly. Slightly ahead of the 8.40 for Suzuki. If you put him in either one of those lineup spots, he would probably just match the upside there. Dansby Swanson hitting the ball really hard, 9.3% barrels, 44.5% hard hits, aligning somewhat with previous seasons of contribution. 8 home runs, 5 steals, but a really, really limited 217, 293, 364 with an 88 WRC plus that doesn't really align with the contact that he's making. So a cheap option to pick off at shortstop if you're going to Cub stacks. I wouldn't be skipping Dansby all that often. Pete Crow Armstrong has 15 stolen bases and is playing great defense in the outfield, and that's about all he's contributing right now. That doesn't get you all that much in DFS. Miguel Amaya for a cheap price at catcher is pretty mediocre. So like top 7 for the Cubs, top 7 for the Phillies, both lineups in play. Pick your poison. Good hitting situation on both sides. Phillies a little bit more expensive than the Cubs, but they're the road team, so you get potential ninth inning where you maybe not from the Cubs side. I wouldn't roster either pitcher. Oh, it's these popular Rays. Is that still holding up, by the way, guys? Whoever's got eyeballs on those Rays rankings and ownership and whatnot across other sites. I'm really interested in that spot since it was mentioned in Discord earlier. Both of these lineups are in. Light blue squads matching up against one another. So we'll start with Zach Littell, who, again, over 16 starts, 86 and a third. Hasn't been bad. 4.17 ERA is effective for a young pitcher. 3.84 xFIP is a little bit better and very, very good. 11% swinging strike rate is solid. 22% strikeout rate against just a 4.3% walk rate. He doesn't rate out great by stuff. Plus, he's given up a few too many barrels on a fly ball trajectory and a couple home runs, but not awful home run numbers. This is just, decidedly average premium contact with a high barrel rate. But that's not a bad mark given that many barrels and those launch angles. Probably gotten a little bit lucky to have that below 4. But everything aligns fairly well for Zach Littell. It's just a tough opponent in the Royals on the other side. Sub 20% strikeout rate. Fair amount of good run creators through here. A really weird option in the leadoff spot again. I'm not going to shut up about that till they move him. I'm really not. But it's a Royals team we've been going to more often than not for bats rather than targeting with pitching this year. I think you could maybe get away with Littell. 74 on DK is probably where I would try. Solidly in the mix of same types. Singer down to Woods Richardson. Fairly priced for the opportunity and for the qualities provided this season. Singer on the other side at 91 on FanDuel. That's a little high compared to the rest of the board. He does project out fairly well, though. 8,200 on the DraftKings slate seems very fair. He's going up against a Rays lineup. This is the confirmed version. 26% strikeouts, 25.9, but we're calling it 26, 23% for the same group of hitters last year. So let's say it's 24.5. Pretty high strikeout group. They've been really underperforming by and large this season. Some of these numbers have stabilized a little bit. You've got some decent power threats in there, but they have not been the team that they were last year. Yandy Diaz, 271, 327, 387, not hitting for the same kind of average, not hitting for the same kind of power, not generating the same on-base opportunities, just a 116 ISO. He is up to a 109 WRC+. Plus. He is making more hard contact now, 49.3% hard hits, but the barrels have dipped significantly. Strikeouts are still very low. Medium kind of a walk rate, but the walks are down a little bit, which has impacted the on base. He hasn't been the player that he was last year, but he's not priced like that guy anymore. 41.32. Totally fair if you want to go to the Rays. Yandy Diaz is absolutely a priority bat in their lineup from the leadoff spot. Brandon Lau, you're just looking for cheap home run upside from the left side of the plate. 3,800 at second base, 2,800. He's a dynamite option for cheap power upside. He's got a 218 ISO with 6 home runs and just 138 plate appearances. You can see has always made very, very good contact at the plate. He is a high strikeout hitter, but he's got a lot of ceiling on him. Isaac Paredes for 43.33 is pretty cheap for a guy with 13 home runs, a 197 ISO over 332 so far this year, and 31 home runs in 571 plate appearances last year with a pretty decent slash line, a 238 ISO, and a 137 WRC+. Plus. We're talking about a very high quality 900 plate appearances out of Isaac Paredes at this point. I think we could just safely say that like this guy's pretty good and probably shouldn't only be 4,300 on the DraftKings slate. That's where some of the value rating is coming from. Nobody above, holy hell, 4,300. No wonder they rated out so strongly for value. So Isaac Paredes is simultaneously ridiculously underpriced for his skill set and the most expensive player on the Rays at just 4,300. That's why this is such a good stack. It's not their ceiling or their upside necessarily. It's just the value that's pushing up the quality of the stack, but it's kind of extreme in that regard. But as I was saying, I mean, Paredes, you can see, like, if you're just looking premium contact, he's done these successful things without generating a ton of premium contact. So I don't really mind that it's low. Low strikeout rate, a lot of walks. He's way better than 4,300. 33 on FanDuel is a little bit low maybe, but it's not wildly incorrect. Josh Lowe, 37.29, 5 home runs, 4 steals in just 123 plate appearances. Decent output, a 198 ISO, 104 WRC+, plus, was really good last year with 20 home runs, 32 steals, and 501 plate appearances, a 200 plus ISO. Josh Lowe's an excellent option. He's just been absent for a big part of the season. Randy Arozarena, 4,000, 3,000. Sub Mendoza line, 307 on base, 97 WRC+, plus, just a 160 ISO. He's up to 11 home runs and 10 steals. He's been coming on a little bit. We picked him off for the home run play of the day the other day. Up to 8.5% barrels, 42% hard hits. Those numbers are still down year over year, but they're better than 2 years ago. At least for counting stat upside and driving in all the guys when they get on base ahead of him, Arozarena is always on the board, and he's got significant counting stat upside. Richie Palacios, 3,300 second base outfield, 2,700 three positions on FanDuel, 12 stolen bases on the year, a solid 338 on base, dead on league average for run creation, 4 home runs in 235. He's a playable part, mix and match kind of quality. Jose Siri, 34, 3,000, has 11 home runs and 7 steals, wildly inconsistent, 213, 292 on the front end of the triple slash, but a 199 ISO, 103 WRC+, plus, 15% barrel rate, 40.9% hard hits. He's appealing for home run upside. He's got a little bit of stolen base bonus upside there. It's just you don't get all that frequent of contributions. He's not reliable for scoring. Could put a lot of zeros in your lineup, but could also break a slate for you. Benny Rortvedt, Taylor Walls down the bottom of the lineup. Rortvedt's been okay this year. He's gotten on in a 363 clip with a decent overall slash line. Creator runs 22% better than average over 171. Just more of a correlated scoring catcher than an independent contributor type catcher. And then Taylor Walls has been a little bit messy over 56 this year. Had a interesting start to his season, if I remember it correctly, from last year, and then cratered around the slash line, but had 8 home runs and 22 steals, most of which came fairly early, like the first 100 and change plate appearances, and then kind of cratered, but does have a little bit of counting stat skill from the bottom of the lineup. If you need a cheap infielder, shortstop on DK, you can mix and match your way through Taylor Walls, but there's a lot more appealing guys in that lineup. From the Rays side, to talk about the fit at leadoff, 229, 282, 339 now from Michael Garcia. 110 ISO. We're down to a 72 WRC plus from their every goddamn day leadoff hitter. Kansas City, if you're out there, your team would be better if Michael Garcia was not leading off. I don't know how else to put this. You would score more runs. For our purposes, he's fine. We don't care. We like him in the leadoff spot. For DFS, it's great. He's cheap. Not really on FanDuel at 34, but at 45, second base eligible on DraftKings, he's cheap. He's a okay creator of counting stats when he happens to get on base and contribute. He's stolen 21 bags. He can drive the ball effectively, 43.4% hard hits, just 4.5% barrels. He doesn't really strike out. He puts a lot of balls in play, but he really hasn't seen much success in that leadoff role. He's just much more likely like a 5-6 hitter than a leadoff hitter. Take one of your better on-base options, and you really didn't put many of them in the lineup today, down lineup. You don't really want Sal leading off, although he is a tremendous on-base option. I don't think Sal leadoff is completely crazy, but you could easily go Bobby Witt leadoff, Vinny Sal, and then move Michael Garcia to like 5 and play with him, Mike Massey, Hunter Renfroe, and MJ Melendez between 5 and 7, or 5 and 8, I guess. It's just a really, really, really weird fit up there. But for our purposes, again, he's totally fine and kind of like the option when I'm going to the Royals. Play him a lot. Bobby Witt, 64-43, totally deserves it. 12 home runs, 22 steals, a 222 ISO, 144 WRC plus. Like Trey Turner, he is appropriately highly priced. 9.36 in the home run model and more cheap bats around him to work with than Trey Turner has. Vinny Pasquantino, just 4,400 still on the DraftKings slate, 3,200 on FanDuel, cheap on both sites. Up to 10 home runs. That ISO's creeping up at 189. He's up to a 107 WRC plus. Strikes out 13% of the time against this excellent premium contact over the last couple of seasons combined. He's way too cheap. 336 quality plate appearances, and I am willing to bet that the next 336 are better. I love the bat. I think there's still underappreciated upside there. Sal for 51-34, no secret in this lineup. Catcher and first base on DK is nice. Very solid triple slash, 14 home runs, a 192 ISO. Excellent contributor. It goes up and down a little bit and has over the course of this season, but overall the numbers are excellent from Sal this year. Mike Massey, 4,100, 3,100, 7 home runs in just 125 plate appearances, a 241 ISO. Done really well in his limited opportunities this year, and he was a bat that we liked coming into the season. 126 WRC plus in that stretch of opportunities. Another low strikeout, low walk guy, so a lot of well-struck balls in play out of him. Renfroe and MJ have 8 home runs apiece. They're both wildly inconsistent. You get fewer strikeouts this year out of Renfroe, 26 and change out of MJ. MJ's making the better contact between the two, but they're both infrequent contributors. You can mix and match your way through shares, but they're not ideal. I do still think that MJ should be better than he's been. CJ Alexander continues to be the dead min on DraftKings, 2,100 on FanDuel. He's gone 0 for his first 6 in the show so far. Mix and match piece. Kyle Isbell, mix and match at 26. 6 homers, 4 steals, just a 281 on base. Pretty limited from the bottom. I skipped over actually talking about Brady Singer. So over 16 starts, Singer's got a 3.12 ERA and a 3.57 xFIP. He's got a 22.6% strikeout rate. I know he's come and gone over, like last season was mostly bad. Season before that was mostly good. And he's been more like the guy from 2 years ago so far this year. So against the very gettable underperforming Rays lineup with a lot of strikeouts, if they're going to be super popular for those value prices, and I don't typically like to do it on that kind of an angle where I take a medium kind of talent pitcher against a lineup that's going to get popular, but I think in this case you can. $8,200 is a very fair price for the talent and the output that he's given you so far this year. 91 on FanDuel, I like it less as a single bullet pitcher site, and with a lot of comparable prices. But he's a definite dice roll, dart throw, whatever you want to call it, on the DraftKings slate. Has not been bad this year. 7 1/3 against Miami in his most recent outing, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts. 5 innings to start before that, just 1 earned run, 4 strikeouts. 6 innings to start before that. The first one was against the Rangers, and then this one was against the Dodgers. 3 earned runs on 5 hits over 6, got the quality start. They didn't win, struck out 4, walked 2, gave up 3 home runs in that game. The fact that he gave up 3 home runs and only 3 earned runs is actually damn impressive. Can be got for power for sure, but hasn't been bad in that department this year results-wise. Keeps the ball down fairly effectively. A lot of hard hits and exit velo and too many barrels. It's where some of the home runs has come from. But by and large, he's pitching really well, and this is, again, not a Rays lineup that I have all that much faith in, all that much love for. They're just cheap. Or let's put it this way. There are a number of hitters that I do like in this lineup, but they've all kind of underperformed this year, which damages their upside. Let's go. Royals bats. Rays bats for value. I think it's fair. But I like the Royals better. On FanDuel, they're honestly not even that far off price-wise. Outside of Bobby Witt, obviously. And then Singer over Littell. But both pitchers slightly on the board. Talented enough to pay off these prices. Even Littell against the Royals. Looks like a bunch of lineups are dropping in. Let's see what you guys are talking about. Tampa Bay drawing some ownership. That's for sure. Travis Wyndham thinks Tovar's going yard off of Dallas Keuchel. Okay, Mama's ownership. Those aren't crazy ownership numbers then for Tampa Bay. As long as they're not super popular, I do think given those low prices, that's kind of appealing. But it depends on what you're doing. Coors Field game, we don't really need to talk about these pitchers, in my opinion. Dallas Keuchel did not know he was still attempting to be a major league pitcher until he popped up in the news as having gotten called up to the Brewers. In his 4-inning start the other day, he does not look like he was all that impressive. 4 innings, faced 21 hitters, gave up 5 earned on 8 hits, 2 home runs allowed, and 4 strikeouts. Dallas Keuchel last year made 6 starts through 37 2/3, had a 14.5% strikeout rate against a 5.97 ERA with a 4.84 xFIP. The one thing that I do want to point out, because somebody was mentioning Tovar for home run upside, is, and who knows if it's still going to be the case. Obviously, it was not that last game. But over time, the one thing Dallas Keuchel does well is keep the ball down, limited launch angles, pretty decent at inducing weak contact, medium contact. It's not as much on display given that this year wasn't all that great for that. Outside of a low launch, he gave up too many barrels and a somewhat aggressive home run rate. But he was good at it last year in that limited sample. And then, since we've got it, man, it was only medium at it that year, too. This was already after the decline had hit. That's the problem. You can see a low launch angle. So if you can manage that, none of this is a reason to play Dallas Keuchel. It's just a reason that some of these numbers are a little bit in check home run-wise compared to where they might otherwise be because of Dallas Keuchel's track record. And maybe it limits the home run opportunities a little bit. But again, he wasn't that guy in his last start and probably is not anymore. Ryan Feltner, over 86 2/3 in 16 starts, has a 5.82 ERA, but a 3.98 xFIP. That's respectable enough. 10.6% swinging is good. That CSW is not, especially with only a 6% walk rate. It's been pretty good at limiting premium contact, limiting barrels, keeping the ball down somewhat effectively at 11.3 degrees. A few home runs, but not tragic numbers there. Last time out, just 2 strikeouts at Houston. A good start over 5. Oh, no, that's a bad start. Sorry. 6 earned runs on 7 hits over 5 innings against the Dodgers. What drew my eye was 6 strikeouts in that game, but wasn't good there. 6 2/3 against the Pirates at home. Struck out 8, but gave up 3 home runs, 4 earned on 7 hits. I think he's pretty gettable with one of the better offenses in baseball. Brewers at the top of the board on the stacks board. The Rockies not far behind, though, at a very healthy second highest on the board. Run total 558 against Keuchel. So either side, we're just looking at bats. And we've got both these lineups. Garrett Mitchell in the Brewers lineup today. Tovar in the leadoff spot for the Rocks. Gains him a little bit of upside. So Turang in the leadoff spot. Dynamite player. 288, 350, 411. Really mostly care about the on base, the stolen base upside, and the run creation marks. Very strong contributor in all those categories. Not a big time power hitter, but has hit 6 home runs. More of a contact focused hitter, draws some walks, put the ball in play, get on base, correlate with the excellent bats behind you in the lineup. The Brewers are expensive, but that's because they're playing at Coors Field against Ryan Feltner today. William Contreras for 62-38. Honestly, could be 4,000 or above on FanDuel. He's been excellent this year, 355 on base, 296 average with 10 home runs, 155 ISO, creating runs 28% better than average, all that premium contact to finish off the slash line, 451 slug. Yelich at 63-45, very pricey on both sites, but totally worth it. 47.2% hard hits, in line with his previous year's production. The barrels are down slightly, but he's having a very, very strong year overall at 323, 399, 493, 152 WRC plus. Excellent run creator, medium power, fantastic stolen bases, and just an ideal Coors Field hitter with how he drives the ball, even if he's not hitting home runs. I think I said that yesterday as well. But tons and tons of upside for Christian Yelich. Willie Adames, 55-39. For a guy with 13 home runs and 10 stolen bases, 110 WRC plus, an effective hitter of the baseball in terms of his ability to barrel the ball, drive the ball, hit home runs, he's not really all that high priced for Coors Field. Maybe a couple $100 on both sites, more aggressively so on FanDuel. But I feel like Adames was around 5,500 at one point, not in Coors Field this year. He's cooled in terms of the average, the on base, but this is normal within expectations for Willie Adames. Garrett Mitchell for just 3,900 is not a irrelevant piece in the heart of the lineup. Quality lefty bat. Last year in 73 plate appearances, he had 3 home runs, 103 WRC plus. Year before, in 68 opportunities, a very strong slash line, 2 home runs, 8 steals. He's got a good skill set for DFS contributions, if nothing else. 3,900 is very cheap. 3,000 is very cheap on FanDuel. Just take the name, take any stats off it. It could be Larry from chat hitting 5th today at these prices in Coors Field, and we'd at least be talking about it. 45-33 across sites for Jake Bauers. A lot of lefty pop in that bat for fair prices. 10.9% barrels, 43.6% hard hits, 7 home runs with a 186 ISO and 197 opportunities. All I care about is those numbers, the contact, the quality of contact for these prices in Coors Field. That's all you really need. Sal Frelick puts the ball in play a fair amount, 271, 345, 341, just at league average for run creation, 12 stolen bases. If he's getting on base, he's a contributor. I'd rather have seen Jackson Chourio in that spot or further up the lineup, honestly. 3,700, 3,400 for Chourio. He's got 9 home runs, 8 stolen bases. Limited in terms of the output, the triple slash, the frequency of quality, but a ton of skill. 90 WRC plus, 147 ISO. Get him while he's cheap. 3,700 for that talent. I don't care what the numbers have been over 257 plate appearances as a 20-year-old in his first season in the league. Just that skill set at 3,700 is just a mistake. That is too low. FanDuel got it right at 34. DraftKings dramatically underpriced on Chourio. Monasterio, a skippable mix and match quality piece. He's also hitting in Coors Field, so there's a little bit of additional upside. If you need a cheap infielder and you're stacking Brewers, you can go there. On the Rocky side, Tovar off the top, 5.79 in the home run model. You weren't wrong. One of the better home run upside opportunities from the Rockies lineup for sure. Middle of the board toward the magic number. He's got 12 on the season, a 185 ISO. It's believable upside, and even if he doesn't homer today, there's a ton of upside from the shortstop. And 51-34, it's not like you're paying a big Coors Field tax there. There's really no Coors Field tax on the Rockies side, which is weird. Going up against Dallas Keuchel, that is a tremendous spot looking at some of these prices. Brendan Rodgers for just 37-31 against the corpse of Dallas Keuchel. I get that he's not a tremendous second baseman, but Coors Field, 44.7% hard hits, 284, 327, 412 so far this year, 5 home runs. It's effective enough bat for my money. 5,200, 3,700 for Ryan McMahon, who has 14 home runs, a 189 ISO, 112 WRC+, has been the best hitter on this team for most of the season. 52.3% hard hits, 13% barrels. We can't make Ryan McMahon at least a little bit expensive. Elias Diaz for 44, hitting cleanup. 3,200 on FanDuel. He's slashing 304, 351, 440. He doesn't have the most power at the position. He doesn't have the most power in the league or even on this team, but he's a frequent contributor. He's got a 107 WRC plus for just 4,400 hitting cleanup at Coors Field against Dallas Keuchel. It's just dumb. Too cheap. Super playable on DK. Playable catcher one-off on DK. He'll probably get some popularity, but it would be worthwhile. Brenton Doyle for 47, 34, 9 homers, 20 steals, 91 WRC plus. Not the most consistent contributor in the world, but a lot of premium contact, a lot of quality in terms of counting stats. That's all we need. Jacob Stallings has been very good, over 143 plate appearances. Yet another catcher to utilize out of this lineup. 4,200 on DraftKings, totally good. 29 on FanDuel is playable. 274, 359, 435, a 112 WRC plus in the small sample. 4 home runs already. Making very good contact and has made good contact in the past. Michael Talia disappointed us as the home run pick of the day yesterday, but he's hit 9 home runs in 143 plate appearances. Had a surge for power through June after just being talked about endlessly with his numbers in the home run model every time he's on the slate, whether they're at home or not, honestly. You can see 7.85 leads the Rockies today at 244 ISO in his small sample of plate appearances. He's sub Mendoza. He's at a 238 on base. He's almost entirely home run or bust, but he's got a lot of upside for power. I like the option. First base only at 43 on DraftKings. First and outfield, which Nolan Jones has the same eligibility on FanDuel. Jones, 3 homers and 3 steals in 162. The output's definitely been down, but he was absolutely fantastic last year, and I believe that the talent is still there. 48.8% hard hits is a good indicator that that's a reasonable expectation. Still drawing 13% walks. That on base should be way higher with 13% walks. There's a good player in there, 4,831. He's cheap. Hunter Goodman also has a ton of power. He's hit 7 home runs in 112 plate appearances. Goodman and Talia both delivered a ton of home run upside and power through the minors. Goodman's got catcher eligibility. So technically on DraftKings, you've got 3 different catchers that you can utilize from this Rockies lineup tonight, all at 4,400 or lower. Just pick the lowest owned one and cram them into your lineup. Goodman gives you home run upside. Stolen gives you a little bit of both. And Elias Diaz gives you good contact skills and a great lineup position. A lot of interesting ways to play that on DK today. 3 position eligible on FanDuel, technically 2 because catcher and first base are the same thing. I like Hunter Goodman's upside. I would not begrudge somebody. It's terrible in terms of average number of plate appearances, but if you expect Coors to go off in the way that Vegas expects, with this team drawing more than a 5.5 run total, well, those last 3 guys in the lineup are going to pick up extra plate appearances, so it kind of offsets the fact that they hit down lineup. I really like that as a cheap 3-man on DraftKings, especially with the opportunity to put Goodman at catcher, Talia at first, and Jones in the outfield. It's even better with the multi-position on FanDuel. You could go outfield for both of those guys and leave first base open for a better player. Obviously, a lot of ways to click that together. I don't think it's a mistake to look down lineup for the Rockies and just grab those 3 hitters as a small stack, and you can obviously full stack the Rockies to your heart's content at these prices. They're very, very cheap for a Coors Field game. They're also a very bad baseball team. We can't hide that. We can't make any bold statements about the quality of the team overall. But they're in Coors Field too. They've got the second highest run total on the board, and I think they ranked out 4th or 5th on the stacks board today, and that was just on their own. They're on it's a full point lower in terms of we're just looking at the pure scoring average, but 10 plus is always going to put you among the highest teams. Bats on both sides. Neither pitcher. Brewers over the Rockies, but Rockies are discounted. Playable bats on both sides at Coors Field tonight. The best pitching duel of the day. Got both of these lineups, fortunately. Gunnar Henderson drawing a pretty premium home run mark against George Kirby. Kirby's terrific. The Orioles are obviously very, very good, but as far as Vegas is concerned anyway, he's outpacing them. He's got them at a sub-4 run total. And then it makes all the sense in the world that Grayson Rodriguez has this very limited Mariners lineup at a very low run total as well, also sub-4. Between the two, I'd rather draw shares of Grayson Rodriguez $9,400 on DraftKings, you're getting that nice discount that we talked about at the top of the show. The fact that he's 94, 10-5, 10-3, 98, 96, even 89, 87 get into that mix a little bit. That is a tremendous discount against the team that we've literally targeted almost every time they've been on the slate this year. 27 point, with way worse pitchers, I'll add. 27.2% strikeout rate for this confirmed version of the Mariners lineup. They were 24% last year, so call it dead on 25. I'll give them a little bit. Call it 25%, 1 in 4 upside for a pitcher who's dead on 1 in 4 right now for the season. 3.72 ERA, 3.66 xFIP, tremendous rating by Stuff Plus, 13.1% swinging, 29.2% CSW. I believe that Grayson Rodriguez is going to be the highest owned pitcher on DraftKings. It makes total sense to me. Probably among the highest owned overall on FanDuel as well. Makes total sense on both sides. The fact that you can buy George Kirby for just 87 on DraftKings, though, has its appeal. There's no real reason to think that Kirby can't have a great day against this Orioles team. They're just, by and large, lower strikeout than their opponent. That said, last year's number for the same lineup is basically dead on. So if we're giving these guys a little bit, maybe we take a little bit away on the Orioles side and we call it like 22, 23-ish. Kirby, the lower end of the two strikeout pitchers, but not incapable. 24.2% strikeout rate is very good. 11.4% swinging. 26.4% CSW could probably be improved a little bit by more strike throwing, but he's a control command pitcher of the highest order. He is the model for what this team wants to do, which is medium grade strikeout and extraordinarily low walk rates. Keep guys off the bases, and it becomes very difficult to score. I'm noticing that I made the correct decision with Ryan Mountcastle this week, which I love. Put him on the bench this week. So yeah, Kirby is very playable. You can see he's above average for Stuff Plus as well. He's given up a little bit of premium contact, a little bit of power in terms of barrels and launch this year, but just 34.4% hard hits, 88.2 miles an hour of exit velo. Makes it all just kind of circumstantial. Doesn't really impact my desire to play him. You do have a very high quality Orioles lineup on the other side. It's the only thing really, potentially restricting the Kirby play, but I think that renders him under-owned. It did render him a little bit under-projected, especially by comparison to the guy 10 points higher on the other side of this game, but that explains the price offset on both sides. Kirby's tremendous. I would rather have Orioles bats against a tremendous Kirby than Mariners bats against Grayson Rodriguez. Mariners are really low end in this spot. I really don't like getting into those bats. As a contrarian angle against the highest owned pitcher on the slate, maybe you could go there, but I'm also noticing there's no Julio in the lineup, so you're dealing with J.P. Crawford, Ty France, Luke Raleigh, Cal Raleigh, Jorge Polanco. Oh, there's Julio. He's hitting 7th. Okay. So he is in the lineup. He's just way down lineup because he's been awful this year. Yeah, it's not an appealing Mariners stack. So talking about the team that we actually do like to stack a little bit, 65-45 against this pitcher for Gunnar is not ideal, but you can see he's above the magic number by a significant margin, 11.69 in the home run model. One of the better home run hitters in baseball this season. He's got 26 on the year, 13 stolen bases to boot, a 316 ISO, creating runs 77% better than average. Gunnar is an absolute superstar at shortstop. Adley Rutschman behind him, 56-35. 15 home runs, a fantastic slash line, 176 ISO, creating runs 34% better than average. If he's not the best catcher in the league, he's one of the top 3. Ryan O'Hearn, 4,000, 2,900, despite continuing a very strong season last year, over 251 this year. He's at 285, 347, 461. He's created runs 30% better than average. He's continued to hit the ball pretty hard. It is down like 10 points year over year because he was at a ridiculous 51.5% hard hits last year. This year, 41.7, still a good mark for such a cheap hitter. 7.4% barrels, also down, but he's got his 10 home runs, 175 ISO. Quality left-handed bat for a very fair price, just a bad matchup. Anthony Santander, the switch hitter, will be hitting from the left side against the righty, which is where we want him. He's got 22 home runs this year, a 273 ISO. There's also limited strikeouts this year, 18.3% strikeout rate, down from 23.2 last year. One of the guys who's offset that average a little bit, but he's been very, very effective this season. Not a frequent contributor in terms of his slash line, 230, 299 on the front end, but we're really just looking for something there for some power. 7.70 in the home run model to sit second on the team today. Histon Kjerstad, 31-24, effectively cheap. Over 37 plate appearances in the show so far. He's been good. He's a very high-end prospect, one of the top rated prospects in all of baseball, one of their best prospects, and he's very, very cheap for the quality. Over 258 AAA plate appearances with that ridiculous AAA affiliate that they've got this season. He has 16 home runs, a 300 ISO, slashing 300, 397, 601, and creating runs 50% better than average. So suffice to say, yet another very, very good bat for this team and underpriced. Even against George Kirby, those prices are probably too low for the talent. Jordan Westburg, 5,000, 3,300 is still a little bit underpriced over there. Second and third base eligibility is dynamite, 3,300. A little bit underpriced here, too. He's a 3,500 plus player. 281, 332, 505, a 224 ISO. Created runs 37% better than average with 13 home runs on the board. Fantastic contact profile. Westberg's been tremendous this year. Colton Cowser, 15.8% barrels, 49.4% hard hits, 12 home runs on the season, a 219 ISO. No longer a member of the Dynasty squad. Went away in that gigantic trade package. But I wish him well. And he's been very good. He's been a lot of streaks, very hot and cold kind of a player. But if you catch him on the upswing, tons and tons of power upside. A lot of strikeouts, tons and tons of power upside. Cedric Mullins has been very good for counting stats. 9 homers, 16 steals. Just an 84 WRC+, 218, 262 on the front end of the slash line. Just needs to figure out how to put the ball in play a little bit more consistently and reach first base. And he would be a more effective option, but a mix and match DFS play for sure. Jorge Mateo is basically the exact same thing, just counting stats and crazy inconsistent results, but he's a mix and match option in the infield. You get triple position on FanDuel at 2,800. Second base is at least the correct one of those spots to put him at on DraftKings. If you're going to the Mariners against Grayson Rodriguez, I do think it's probably a mistake. It's just a low-owned contrarian kind of angle. So if you're building 150 lineups and you throw 3 to 5 of them in, sure, great. You got it. You got your contrarian angle booked. If you're building one lineup, if you're building 3 lineups, even if you're building like 20 lineups, maybe in 20 you throw them in one time. If you're building 3 lineups, 5 lineups, I really don't think we're getting the Mariners. Even if it would be if they happen to succeed, it's a great angle into the top of the board. It's a big slate, a lot of better options. J.P. Crawford off the top, 41, 3,000, 313 on base, down from 380 last year, 99 WRC+. He's been awful this year. Everybody on this team basically has. Ty France, 232, 323, 372. That is not a Ty France slash line from years past. 8 home runs, a little bit of power output, but just a 140 ISO overall. He's been one of the better run creators on this team at 106 WRC+, but limited. Luke Raley at least makes good contact, but strikes out a ton, 31.2% strikeouts out of Raley. No real walk rate to speak of. The 2 guys that follow at least walk a little bit with their 30+% strikeouts. Raley's hit for a better average at 261 than those guys have, but 305 on base isn't super appealing. 188 ISO with 9 home runs and 221. Shows the power upside. He is a lefty, but I don't love it against Rodriguez. Seems like more of a strikeout target. Cal Raleigh's at least hit 14 home runs, 15% barrels, 53.2% hard hits. You can't argue with the catcher power output from Cal Raleigh. What you can argue with is the 30+%, 32.1% strikeout rate, the 202 average, and 289 on base. Home run or bust out of Cal Raleigh. That's most days. Jorge Polanco has 5 home runs and 2 steals and a sub Mendoza 285 on base, 73 WRC plus season going. It's been pretty bad over 200 plate appearances. Disappointed. I thought he would bounce back a little bit this season. Dominic Canzone, another player who does make good contact. 11% barrels, 43.9% hard hits, 7 home runs and 137 plate appearances, but another guy, 30+% strikeouts in that sample. 203 ISO is great, but a lot of strikeouts. Seems like more of a strikeout target. If I am stacking Mariners, my priorities are probably like 1, 2, 3, and then whatever you want around them. I'd probably just go Julio because it's easy. Julio at 51 is discounted on DraftKings from previous talent levels. 29 is certainly cheap for Julio Rodriguez on FanDuel, but this is a version of Julio who has a 247, 297, 327 slash line, a .08 ISO this year, 7 home runs. That limited power production comes with an 8.3% barrel and 47.5% hard hits. We're down a little bit in both categories, but those are still in a vacuum respectable enough numbers. The hard hit number is good. He's stolen 17 bases, but he's not getting on. He's not seeing results for hitting the ball as hard as he does. Been really, really limited, and he's in a terrible matchup that could exploit the high strikeout rate. Mitch Haniger, high strikeout rate, very limited output, low average, sub 300 on base, 7 home runs, 124 ISO though, 82 WRC plus. Josh Rojas has been one of their better contributors at the bottom of the lineup, 104 WRC plus, 4 homers, 6 steals, very, very limited mix and match quality option. Again, priorities probably not necessarily in order, but like these two guys and Dominic Canzone, and then it's probably Julio, and then you're probably picking from either 1, 2, or 5. Bad team. Grayson Rodriguez, George Kirby, Orioles bats. I really don't like the Mariners bats at all here. 2 games to go. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe. Dennis asks, do you think if the Mariners were all on different teams, we'd be talking about how they would be bouncing back before the season is over? I think we're going to get the opportunity to see some of these guys with very different teammates before the season is over. What are we, 3 weeks from the trade deadline? It's going to be a very different Mariners lineup. I would say that about Julio, but I've been saying all along that I think Julio bounces back, and I'm starting to unwind saying that. But yeah, like if Julio was on, I don't know, the Red Sox, and he had the past 2 seasons worth of production, including a bad start to last season that rounded into great form, I'd probably be more enthusiastic about selling the upside, selling the bounce back. J.P. Crawford, not so much. And the 380 on base was great last year, but it was primarily a correlated scoring play. Ty France, I'd probably be talking about how he's not hitting for average anymore, and it's weird, if anything. Striking out way more than he ever has. Cal Raleigh's never going to be a consistent hitter, so you're getting what you would expect from Cal Raleigh. If Jorge Polanco was still on the Twins, would I be talking about a bounce back for Jorge Polanco? Yes, probably would. It's easier to downgrade the potential bounce back for Polanco on the Mariners. Everybody else, I think, is kind of where they're supposed to be. Monty saying, amazing that Houston is on the Mariners' heels. Suddenly, Seattle desperately needs Alonso or Vladdy Jr. Yeah, I don't disagree with that, and certainly either one of those guys would be a massive uptick at first base for this team. So a couple pretty good targets there. At this point, I'd be surprised if the Mets actually dealt Alonso, though. Just with the surge that they've had, with the fact that they're contending, they've got like a 40% probability to make the playoffs at this point. But yeah, the Mariners need to do something. As I've said it before, I'll say it again. This pitching staff is too good for them to do nothing with the offense to upgrade and try and make a run. This pitching staff is phenomenal. It's probably the best man-for-man pitching staff in all of baseball. So they really need to shore up this lineup for to do the right thing by those guys and their fans. I mean, too good a pitching staff. Anyway, let's get back off of this game. We circled back there. Believable pitching value in this one. This is the value guys. Both high-end value options at 8,200 and 7,500 for Jose Soriano. Very fairly priced on both sites. A lot of upside for him. We could see he was, number 5 there on the board at those prices. Doesn't really compare. Just look at the conditional formatting price-wise. Look where he is on the board. It's all you really need to do sometimes. But Mitchie Spence, he's in green prices. He's even lower priced, and he's not that far behind. Call it 5 FanDuel points, which amounts to, again, when you're talking about the difference between 33 and 28, that's a strikeout and a half. It's 2 additional outs, or a strikeout and 2 additional outs. That's not a gigantic gulf, even if it looks like it. So I think both of these guys are viable dart throws against very low-end limited lineups on either opposing side. Spence last time out 5 1/3, gave up 6 earned runs to the same Angel squad, so that was problematic. I think I was talking about using him in that spot the same way I'm talking about using him again here. So maybe that's a bad sign, but he struck out 6 in that game. He gave up a home run, 6 earned runs on 8 hits. I don't know how it happened exactly. He ended up going 5 1/3 in that one. He took the loss, didn't get the quality start. It's obviously ugly. But against a much better Royals team the game before that, he went 6 innings, gave up just 2 runs, 2 homers, which was problematic, but just 2 runs on 6 hits, struck out 7 Royals, and they're low strikeout, especially by comparison to this Angels team. 5 2/3, gave up 4 on 9 hits to the Twins, struck out just 3. That one's not a great DFS start. It's not a complete meltdown, but it's not a great DFS start. Against the low strikeout Blue Jays, he went 7. Gave up 2 earned runs on just 5 hits. Struck out only 3. Nobody's pitching this guy as like a actually very good pitcher or anything. 20% strikeouts, a 4.35 ERA, but a 3.79 xFIP. 10.9% swinging is a pretty decent swinging strike rate against the free swingers that are in this Angels lineup. Despite the results last time around, I think you could go right back to the well with some Mitch Spence value here. I really do. The Angels are bad enough and they're high strikeout enough. And then coming the other way, Soriano, 3.48 ERA with a 3.82 xFIP, 20.3% strikeouts with a 10.2% swinging. 101 marked by Stuff Plus, 99.86 for Mitch Spence on the other side. Call them both around league average as far as stuff goes. What Soriano's done well is keep the ball down. Negative 0.4 degree average launch, 2.03% home runs, some hard hits, some barrels. He's made a few mistakes in there, but that's a phenomenal average launch angle by and large. Helps him out quite a bit. There are plenty of strikeouts in this A's lineup, and if you take some home run upside away from him, not that he's been extreme in doing that. You still do have 2 guys above the magic number for home run power and a couple guys in the middle over here. But Soriano's been effective. Last time out, 5 strikeouts, gave up just 2 earned runs on a homer and 5 total hits, walked 2 against Arizona, went 8 innings in that one, got the win. 6 innings in 3 straight starts before that. 2 of them he gave up 4 earned runs, one against Seattle, one against Cleveland. A very good 6-inning start against the Padres, though. 1 earned run, struck out only 1 and walked 1. I think I mentioned that one at the top, actually. 7 2/3 against Texas, going back before that 6-inning stretch. So over his last 5 straight starts, he hasn't given us fewer than 6 innings, and he's pitched into the 8th inning twice. Once against the Rangers, once against Arizona, both on the road. Certainly, pitching on the road in Oakland is a better spot than those 2 spots. I think there's believable upside for the price. He's cheap. He projects out pretty well. He was a better strikeout pitcher out of the pen. 30+% strikeouts in 42 innings of relief last year. But he's been an effective starter for them all season. I like the upside, and I would probably put Soriano on top of Mitch Spence if I'm ranking them. And then if we're going to the bats in this one, I'd probably put the A's above the Angels if we're ranking that. For the Angels, Nolan Schanuel off the top, 34-27, just not giving you much results over 311 plate appearances. Apparently they like him. They like him in the leadoff spot. He has low strikeout, a lot of contact, but not making great quality contact, not really delivering average or on base or creating runs or anything. So problematic leadoff hitter. Luis Rengifo, 45-32, multi-position on both sides, having a good year, 317, 362, 449, creating runs 30% better than average. He has 21 steals, 6 home runs. Very high-end player with multi-position in the infield for a fair price. Top priority bats in this lineup, if you're going here, are those 2. We actually have the confirmed version. Did I put these in? Or was that, am I thinking of the last? I think I'm thinking of the last game. These are very much in line with what we've got in here already. Coming up on 6 o'clock. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe. We're going to get through these last 2 games, and then I'm going to get the projections on the site updated. Check out acemind.io. Jump into our Discord. All those good things. One of these days we'll have more sponsors to talk about. Got to get some money in here. So, yeah, Schanuel, Rengifo. So what I was saying, Rengifo, Taylor Ward, your top 2 priority bats in this lineup. And then Sano not in the lineup. He was in that previously projected version. It's pretty much the standard version. You do have Zach Neto moving up to the 6th spot, which is interesting enough. But Schanuel's been bad. Renifo's been good. Taylor Ward's been good for power. 14 home runs, a 196 ISO, their best power bat overall this season. Logan O'Hoppe probably has something to say about that. 12 home runs for him, a 202 ISO. So call it a tie between those 2 in terms of being the best power bat. Wedged in between, you've got Willie Calhoun at a cheap price, $3,2700, but he's not all that good outside of putting the ball in play. Kind of miscast in the cleanup spot. If I was rostering this team, I would probably have Willie Calhoun in the leadoff spot today. Maybe move Logan O'Hoppe to the cleanup spot and then drop Schanuel, move Neto to 5, Schanuel 6, something like that maybe, or even Brendan Drury 5. But Willie Calhoun doesn't really make sense for what he does. And he's actually done it fairly well. 281, 335 on the front end of the slash line. He's created runs 8% better than average. Should just be leading off. That's always been Willie Calhoun's skill set. O'Hop, again, tons of power, tons of premium contact. Totally believable, too. No issues with playing Logan O'Hop as a $4,000 one-off hit catcher. He's a priority bat in stacks. He's the third highest priority after Rangifo and Taylor Ward in stacks. Then it's probably Zach Neto for 36, 3,000. He's hit 11 home runs and stolen 11 bases in 300 plate appearances. 188 ISO, 106 WRC+. Neto's been quietly effective this year. Still very, very cheap on DraftKings at 36 at shortstop. Just, another one of those spots where you're limiting a super premium position. How many good shortstops are on this slate? Do you really want to go to Zach Neto that many times? It's challenging. But he's a playable part, probably the fourth highest priority bat in this lineup. Drury's hit a lot of home runs over the last 2 seasons, but not that many so far this year. In 122 plate appearances, he's got one way sub Mendoza, way below 300 on base. Very, very challenging option so far this year. Mickey Moniak's just probably flat out bad. And Joe Adell, 13 homers, 9 steals, gives you some counting stats, has a 212 ISO over 250 opportunities. Good contact, but everything else kind of sucks about Joe Adell. Mix and match options at best in those last 3 spots. If you're going to the A's, which again, between the 2 stacks, I greatly prefer the A's. For one, I've got 2 guys over the magic number for home run upside, both of whom have 15 home runs on the season. Brent Rooker is having a pretty good year. 245 ISO, 40% better than average creating runs, getting on base at a decent clip. Strikeouts are unfortunately at 34.6%, but he still draws his walks. He still makes fantastic contact when he connects. I was hoping that we would get a lower strikeout rate out of him this year. He had seemed to maybe be showing some signs. But if that's his one flaw, we're happy to take it. 4,900, 3,300, probably the top priority bat in this lineup. You do get 11 home runs out of J.J. Bleday from the left side in the top spot. He's very interesting. 19.2% strikeouts, 10.5% walks this year. Getting on at a 324 clip, hitting for a decent amount of power, 199 ISO, creating runs 20% better than average. Over 344 plate appearances, he's been one of their best bats this year. 7.60 in the home run model. Followed by Miguel Andujar, who has got a 7.62 in the home run model. We're up to 135 plate appearances out of Andujar. He's hitting second, third, somewhere up there basically every day. And we're at 305, 333, 398, 113 WRC+. 2 home runs on the board, not showing as much power as we've seen from him in the past. But if he's, and it's believable that he could, if he's kind of remade himself as a hitter rather than a power hitter, let's put it that way, could be interesting. I kind of believe that he's got the skills and the ability to do that. It would just be a different decision than he's ever really shown us. But he's been good, inarguably good over those 135. Langalier's just very inconsistent, but 15 home runs, 231 ISO, playable bat at catcher for just 38 on DK, 29 on FanDuel, priority on both sites. Tyler Soderstrom, just a first baseman on DK, 3,000, irrelevant catcher and first base eligibility on FanDuel, which is the same thing. He's got a 210 ISO, 7 home runs in just 141 plate appearances, 17.1% barrels, 56.1% hard hits. This is a great little stretch of power. He could easily be at a higher home run mark. Zach Geloff for 31.27. Limited in terms of the slash line this year, but does have 9 home runs, 9 steals. That aligns fairly well with the 14 and 14 he had in 300 plate appearances last year. Just had a better slash line overall, better ISO. Brett Harris, Max Schumann, skippable parts, mix and match parts, whatever you want to call them at the bottom. And Lawrence Butler's the same thing. I skipped over him. It's really about the top 6 if you're going to the A's. They're not going to be highly owned. Targeting one of the more popular value pitchers of the day. If you're building a bunch of lineups, you should probably have that position in there. If you're grabbing a bunch of Jose Soriano, I think it makes a little bit of sense to hedge with some A's. Hedging wouldn't be like the top priority there. Depends on how many lineups you're building, but I do think it's a good idea. There's enough quality through that top 6. Soriano. I'm gonna twist it a little bit. Soriano at the top spot. A's bats ahead of Mitch Spence. And then Mitch Spence value trailing, and Angels bats are pretty challenging. Last game up, Diamondbacks and the Dodgers. Doesn't look like we've got the lineups for this late game. Bobby Miller, just 2 innings in that last start. That was at the White Sox. I ran into rain in that one, right? Or no, we checked that at the beginning. That was the one we checked, right? I think. 1 strikeout, 3 walks, gave up a home run, 3 earned on 4 hits in that one. It just came out after 2. But the first start back from the IL at Colorado, again, went 6 1/3 in that one. Despite giving up 5 earned runs, striking out just 2, walking 3, giving up a home run, he faced 25 hitters and went 6 1/3. And I came into that game saying, I can't imagine they're going to give him all that many innings at Coors Field in his first start back. So what the hell do I know? So a little bit of believable upside as far as innings go. Not the best matchup in the world. Not the worst either. The Diamondbacks are kind of middle of the road overall. But there are some threatening hitters in that lineup for a young pitcher. He's just good. You can see it in Stuff Plus, 120 marked by Stuff Plus. Last year as a rookie, 124 innings, 22 starts, 23.6% strikeouts, a 3.76 ERA with a basically matching xFIP. No problems with power. Very good swinging strike rate. This year, in just 20 innings and 5 starts, it's a mixed bag of output, but there's believable talent there for 8,000, 7,500. I think he's on the board given the low pricing. We just got to be a little bit concerned about what the opportunity actually looks like. Ryan Nelson on the other side, I don't think there's any way in hell anybody out there is considering playing, but if you are considering playing Ryan Nelson, don't. Problem solved. Going to the Dodgers bats is the more appealing side of this. They were the top 5, let's call it, team on the stacks board, drawing one of the highest totals, one of the teams that's above 5. Totally believable. Shohei Ohtani, Will Smith, Freddie Freeman, and Teoscar Hernandez, all dynamite options off the top of the Dodgers. Home runs in that order, 26, 11, 12, and 18. 187, 126, 153, and 123 are their WRC plus marks. The only guy below a 200 ISO is Will Smith. He's at 197. Everybody hits for power. Everybody hits for at least an okay average, gets on base, correlates. You got Teoscar at a high strikeout rate, but the other guys are low strikeout, high walk. Just tons of great run creators, tons of power. They're expensive as hell. Justifiably so, though. It's the Dodgers against Ryan Nelson, who has a 5.69 ERA with a 4.66 xFIP and a 15% strikeout rate. Tons of targetable contact for the Dodgers. You can get cheaper if you go down lineup a little bit. Andy Pages, 4,000, 2,900. 8 home runs. The triple slash is cooling off a little bit. 160 ISO. Needs to pick it back up, but he's had an effective 266 plate appearances, 107 WRC plus overall. Been very low strikeout at 15.4%. Or, excuse me, he's high strikeout, 26.3%. Jason Hayward, 15.4%. Good barrels, good hard hit rate out of Andy Pages so far, 11.9 and 43.2. Hayward, 44.7% hard hits and that 15.4% strikeout rate. Over 130 plate appearances, okay for counting stats with 4 home runs, 3 steals. The 205 ISO is very solid. The 108 WRC plus is appealing. It's a limited sample of plate appearances. You take what you get in terms of average and on base from Jason Hayward, but good for premium contact, low strikeout, good for balls in play and the occasional home run. I like the upside. Miguel Rojas has been pretty effective over 160 plate appearances. 126 WRC plus, 297, 344 on the front end of the slash line. 3 homers, 3 steals. He's a limited-ish kind of option, but low strikeout, very low strikeout at 9.4% this year. 6.3% walks. Put the ball in play. It's all I really care about for a cheap infielder. Gavin Lux, Kevin Biggio, mix and match parts at the bottom. Neither one has been all that effective this season. Between the two, I probably still believe that Gavin Lux is the higher end talent, but it's pretty close, and neither one has been appealing. On the Diamondback side, you can absolutely roster some Diamondbacks against Bobby Miller, but again, he is very good. So for the time that he's in there, you can expect some limitations, and then it's not a bad Dodgers bullpen to back him up. Corbin Carroll's been dead at the top of the lineup. 2 home runs, 14 steals, 305 on base, 80 WRC plus. Really, really lost at the plate. 4,900, 3,100. Probably going to lead off, but maybe not. They've been moving him around the lineup trying to get him going. Ketel Marte for 53, 36, 17 homers at 233 ISO, 141 WRC plus. The complete opposite. He's having a great season. Highly deployable second baseman at 3,600 on FanDuel, 5,300 on DraftKings. Love the 53.1% hard hits and 10.5% barrels from a second baseman who doesn't really strike out that much. Jock Peterson, a lot of lefty power. 10 home runs in 237 plate appearances, a solid 212 ISO. A lot of platoon plate appearances, but he's on the right side of splits today, so I expect to see him hitting third and love the power upside. Christian Walker, a lot of power from him as an everyday first baseman, 358 plate appearances, a 215 ISO, 124 WRC plus, 17 home runs. The strikeouts are still a little bit up for this season. Walks are about the same. Barrels are up. Hard hits are up. You're getting a little bit more power as a trade-off for a little bit more strikeout from Christian Walker, but he's having a dynamite year. Lourdes Gurriel, 4,031, pretty cheap. He had a bit of a downturn in terms of the slash line, but we're still at 267. The 302 on base could be better. 421 slug is fine. 154 ISO could be better, but it's okay. 11 home runs against that 154 ISO. So he's doing mostly Teoscar Hernandez or Lourdes Gurriel things. Got those guys mixed up. Former teammates. 4,031 is an effective enough price. He's not the best option in any one of these categories, but he's capable across the board. Jake McCarthy, 39-27, 366 on base is very appealing, over 219 plate appearances. And that's basically what he does, is get on base, correlate, steal some bases, 12 stolen bases, 117 WRC+. He's been okay. Junior Suarez has been a problem. Sub Mendoza, sub 300 on base, only 6 home runs, a 116 ISO. Not doing at all what he's supposed to with the bat this season. Has been dead at the plate for them. Big part of their issues. Gabriel Moreno also has not delivered at the plate after a lot of expectations this year. 230, 313, 346, just 3 home runs, a 115 ISO, and 89 WRC+. Still very low strikeout, 15.2% over his 217 chances, 10.6% walks, but limited in terms of the quality of contact, limited in terms of the results. 80 plate appearances for Geraldo Perdomo this year. He was somewhat effective getting on base, creating runs last year. 353 on base over the full stretch. 6 homers, 16 steals, sub-league average by a point for run creation overall. Was very up and down last season, but had a good bounce back year after a tragic debut the year before, and is somewhat capable as a wraparound play. Another low strikeout guy. Put the ball in play. Dodgers bats, Diamondbacks bats. Bobby Miller, if you want him as a dart throw, but not much more than that. Just given the deep slate. Slate. Deep slate, not state. It's not that kind of show. Dodgers lineups in. Apparently. Ohtani, Smith, Freddie, Teoscar, Pajes, Rojas, Hayward, Taylor, Gavin Lux. So Chris Taylor, another guy down the bottom of the lineup, a right-handed hitter with multi-position eligibility, having a really rough season. Has been very good in seasons past as a utility guy, a mix-and-match player, but really, really limited so far this year. Looks like Rojas moves up a spot and Hayward moves down a spot. Fine either way. They're basically the same read. Scoobable. That's how you know it's been a long show. I just said Scoobable. Tariq Skubal off the top of the board. Just facing a tough Twins team, but 11,010.5. Happy to pay it if I can get there. Excellent pitcher. One of the best in fantasy baseball. One of the best in actual baseball. Grayson Rodriguez, spectacular matchup for a very strong pitcher. He's very, very cheap at 9,400 on DraftKings. Probably my favorite DraftKings pitcher. 10-2 on FanDuel. I would have him if I could afford him, but I feel like I'm probably going to pay down at pitcher today. Some of these good bargains on the board. Dylan Cease. That was a four corners game where it would be believable to see the Rangers beat him, but it would also be believable to see him have a very good strikeout game and post a monster fantasy score. He is that good. Luis Hill, not as good as he's been. The talent, the underlying numbers all suggest a downturn, and he's been in a bit of a downturn over the last 3 starts. Tough opponent on the other side in terms of their quality, their run creation, the power, the ballpark that they're going to be in, the hitting environment overall. But there are a lot of strikeouts, so I can't really artificially limit the Luis Hill projection. It's just needs to have a good day. Capable of having a good day, capable of having a great day against that team. But I don't know for, easily not the safe option up at the top. Jose Soriano, a lot of believability in his projection there. Even if he just comes in at that median projection for that money on both sites, totally playable. Ronaldo Lopez, believable upside against the scuffling San Francisco team. That said, compared to the top options on the board, he's a little bit more limited than those guys. You can see it in the projection, but highly playable across a bunch of lineups. Probably not going to be the highest owned among those pitchers. If you're just building one lineup, you could do worse than Ronaldo here. Nathan Eovaldi, a little bit lower end than that, 9,000 to 8,900. We start to trickle into like the range where a lot of these guys are the same. These two are kind of on a tier on their own, given where the prices are in tough matchups. Just not the ideal amount of upside for these two compared to those guys. But either one of these guys could believably win the slate today. And they're both fairly priced for the more limited opportunities. I trust Kirby a little bit more despite the tougher matchup against Baltimore than I do Eovaldi against San Diego. Pricing kind of reflects that on FanDuel, less so on DraftKings. Either one is playable. Either one is equally playable to the other one. Brady Singer is really interesting, just given that nobody's going to be going there if Tampa Bay's drawing some popularity as a strong value stack. He's not by any means safe, but he's been pitching fairly well overall this year. 91 is a little bit pricey for it on FanDuel. 82 on DraftKings is where I like it. Jose Barrios, I don't love the matchup. I think some of you guys were just talking about him at low ownership on the one of the slates in chat. He's fairly priced, so 7,800, especially on DK as an SP2 option, is on the board for that. You could use him as a cheap SP1, whatever you want to call it. It's just a low-end matchup in terms of strikeout upside. He's been pretty low strikeout this year. He's decidedly mediocre. It's a stretch for me to believe that Jose Barrios wins the day all that often. As an under-owned play with a specific idea behind it of game theory-wise, I'm going to target this, I do think it's doable the way that you guys are talking about it. It's in a vacuum outside of all of that stuff, though. More often than not, Houston puts a few runs on him, doesn't really strike out that much, and you get a pretty limited output DFS-wise. I think that median plus just a couple of points is really your ceiling for Jose Barrios more often than not. On the other side, it's exactly the same for Spencer Arrighetti of 2 spots down, facing a low strikeout, decent quality, but scuffling Blue Jays team. He's got decent strikeout stuff. He's had a few good games fantasy-wise, 8,000, 7,600. He's cheaper than Barrios on the other side. Both those guys just decidedly right where they belong in the middle of the board in this group of same guys. So out of all the same guys, one of whom is facing Tampa Bay, one's facing the Angels, one's facing Detroit. You got Kansas City, Arizona, Toronto, and the Astros in there. I don't know that those are the teams I target as often, especially the Astros and the Blue Jays. I'd rather probably target the Royals or the Diamondbacks. And I'd certainly rather target, say, the Angels, the Rays, the Tigers. So if all those guys are the same, I'm not as inclined to get to the guys in that Houston or Toronto game. I do think either one is realistic, though. Spence, again, just very, very cheap. It's a dice roll, for sure. Not a good pitcher. But he's been okay. He's been like just borderline okay enough that against that Angels team, I can see it. I think for the value pricing, he's a throwable dart. Miller, just a tough spot against Arizona, but very cheap. And as long as we get full innings, a decent strikeout option. Littell, believable potential. I don't love the 84 on FanDuel as compares to the guys immediately above him. 74 on DraftKings makes some more sense. Playable part, but out of all those teams in that same group, Kansas City's probably the third least desirable target. Woods Richardson, believable upside against a very gettable Detroit team. 7,200, I love that price for him on DraftKings. 8,300, and again, single-digit popularity on that DK slate. 8,300, totally playable on FanDuel. Sucks, probably not worth playing. Everybody here sucks, probably not worth playing. Value guy du jour, Hayden Birdsong. A lot of potential for it not to work out, but he's only 6,000. He's cheaper than all the other value guys on the slate. So, like, the real value guy of the day is Soriano at, like, effective, cheap, mid type pricing. If you got to go bargain bin type value, it's Birdsong for 6,000 with his strikeout upside. A lot of walks, a lot of potential for it to completely go bust, a lot of power in that Braves lineup despite their limited output this season. But I kind of believe in the upside for those cheap prices, and especially on FanDuel, that just buys you a hell of a lot, even if he doesn't get you the quality start. It's a little bit more limiting because at least one of these high-price guys, maybe 2 or 3, probably do get to that quality start with bigger upside. You just need it to be within range for whatever that 4,000 extra. I mean, 4,000, that buys you a superstar hitter. So you need that guy to be the right guy and hit his home run, get you, 30-point day. And that closes that gap immediately, even if he doesn't get the quality start. On DraftKings, I think you just can plug and play 6,000. He's got 5-inning upside and got win upside. So the bottom of the board, again, is pretty limited. There's a clear cut line here, plus Birdsong from the bargain bin. Everybody Wisniewski and below is very limited. And then there's a clear cut line. Where did I put it earlier? I think on Ronaldo. Right there. But really, realistically, these two guys are more in that group than they are in this group. So it's like those guys, these guys, and then just meh outside of Birdsong. Real quick, home run board. There it is. One last time. Some Yankees up toward the top. Some Dodgers. As I broke down earlier, all super obvious guys in the 10-plus range outside of maybe Shea Langoliers is not totally obvious to people, but he's been really good for home runs this year. Just a lot of very, very common names, and then I just chose Cody Clemens because he's the oddball there. You could say Ryan Jeffers maybe, David Dahl, are interesting lower owned targets. Some of the Rockies, like Michael Talia. But yeah, it's a somewhat limited power board with just a handful of guys over 10. More guys in the 9s and 8s. Anyway, guys, 6:20. We've been talking for quite a while here. 3 hours plus. Bunch of you guys still hanging out. Should I switch Soriano for Birdsong? Only knowing that you're probably going to ruin that lineup, Trev. So if you've got a lineup you already like and it's got Soriano in it, probably stick. If you need to free up that salary to pay for to complete a 5th man in a stack or go from Jake Myers to Jordan Alvarez or something, then yeah, go for it. Just know what you're doing. Michael Knack calling for the Yelich bomb. Don't disagree with that at all. Love it. Michael Knack, Terry the skipper, just did a 3-hour tour. Smash that like button. I appreciate that, buddy. So I'm going to punch out. I'm going to go get the site updated. I'm going to wish you guys good luck. I'm going to tell you guys that at least one of you go out there and win something, but preferably everybody gets a little piece tonight. Good luck. Go win something. We'll be back tomorrow for more. See you guys.